Hello! Welcome to another episode of Aussie Ferocity. Not that we're counting anyway, who's counting? This is the Master of Sanity, Loopy Legend, and his wonderful co-host.
No, it's Professor Wheatley this week.
Make up your mind, Doctor, Professor, what are you, certified in 20 different languages?
Yes. Well, actually, 47.
Good
times.
How many of us... Yeah, well, actually, technically 20 languages, and then 27 abbreviated slang versions of them.
Hey, slang is language too. It's just, crap language.
And you actually count that?
Of course. Why not?
Okay, this week we do have a nice special guest star with us. Hello, Rocket.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, she's embarrassed already. Oh.
Don't worry.
I'm amused by your antics.
That's the best thing anyone's ever said to us.
Yay! Someone liked our antics for a change instead of paying out, so we don't have to get them back throughout the show. Yay, we'll be nice to this guest star this week. Woohoo!
Hurrah!
I think we'll be all especially nice to this guest star because she's nice. She's about the first guest I've had that's actually nice to us, isn't she?
Well, not just that, but she's actually got a long history of dealing with younger folks who are making lots of strange noises. I would imagine. I was talking more about students, but I don't know. Have any of your students ever gone during class time?
I don't think they've made that noise, but I have had some that would have made a similar sort of onomatopoeia. I used to teach comic scripting, so when we would read the scripts out loud, we read whatever was written down, and sound effects get really strange sometimes.
Yes, I can do Donald Duck.
I'm just imagining some student reading the sound effect labeled "The Doomsday Machine powers up," and just imagining some kid going.
I don't think anyone can do it better than that black guy from the Police Academy series.
He was pretty good at what he did, I will admit.
Uh-huh.
Admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of the Police Academy series, but I've seen enough clips of that guy.
All right, no problem.
Anyhow, moving right along, I think that in terms of news this week, the first one is certainly something you're much more qualified to talk about than I am.
What, you actually saying I'm qualified at something, Professor?
Well, yes. It's something I have not yet studied. I consider studying useful things rather than crates.
Wow, you heard it here first. Anyway, I better get in there and put it out before we get too delayed on this. Anyway, for those of you that have heard the rumours or haven't heard the rumours, Aussie Ferocity is going to be activating a new crate system soon. Exact release dates are still unknown as we're putting the finishing touches on the project, but it's going to mainly affect the HAL service. Basically, we're going to be doing away with the old donator system, and in return you get crates like you normally would in TF2, but you get specifically Ozfur crates. And you can buy keys to unlock them. You can get everything from like temporary goes at certain bosses to permanently unlocking unusual abilities. You get cookies, you get other cool things inside, coloured text, all these weird and wonderful things you can get inside these crates.
I feel I should, for the sake of Rocket here, I should explain this. I assume you're familiar, at least passingly, with the Saxton Hale mode.
Yes. We have actually played against Mr. Hale.
Well, we've got the Aussie Ferocity server is certainly one of the more prominent or out there Hale servers.
Excuse me, we're the best.
You can say that, but that's an objective term. I will certainly say that even though this is also an objective term or possibly subjective, honestly I feel really silly being a writer who continually gets the two words confused. But point is, it's entirely a matter of opinion, and this is also a matter of opinion, but we're also probably one of the more infamous Saxton Hale servers, because as any regular who is not a brony will say, they can describe the recent succession of bosses with, more ponies!
Yes, more ponies!
Have we actually reached the point yet where there are more pony bosses than non-pony bosses, or is there still a balance in terms of there being
still
more
a balance. Still balance. I think it's exactly half and half at the moment.
Yes. It all started with Applejack being introduced as a boss, and then all of a sudden there were just ponies everywhere. But anyway, point is to give some context to this crate announcement. There's a system whereby if you donate money to the upkeep of the server, then you can get access to bosses that other players can only kind of randomly play as. Most bosses are available for everyone to play as, but not all of them. And it's pretty random most of the time. Like, by default, you can only choose to play as Saxton Hale or to randomly choose another boss, which could wind up being Saxton Hale again.
It was a 66% of being Saxton Hale and a 33% chance of being something else.
Exactly. But the point is that you could donate money to the server and you could get access to all the other bosses. You know, basically, so the server keeps going and then you can choose to play whoever you want. And, you know, if you... Basically that kind of thing. However...
It's about another 30 bosses, actually.
Yeah, the donator system now is being done away with. I think, personally, just because it was a bit convoluted and what have you. And they're introducing now a new system wherein it's very similar to the Team Fortress 2 crate system, except that you basically donate a much smaller amount of money, because I think a lot of people were put off by, you know, throwing in $20 every few months. Now you can just throw in a much smaller amount of money, like $1 or $2. You know, prices to be announced, as obviously, and it gives you access to various things. Like, for example, you throw in $1 and you could wind up getting access to a specific boss for, you know, however long, or, you know, just getting various goals, or you can have the unusual type. So, for example, you might still be playing as Saxton Hale, but now you can play as Saxton Hale with the bloodthirsty effect, or the shadow effect, and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's basically the idea behind it.
It's very fun.
It's also to allow more people who might not be able to afford to do the whole donate by every few months thing. It allows them a chance to actually have some unique fun in the mode as well by just throwing in $1 or $2.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's right. And another bit of fun news that a lot of people, I assume, out there would like. Next week's guest star is Commander-in-Chief himself. Leon is agreed to come on the show next week and fully explain the system to us himself. So he'll get all the mechanics of it for you. He'll have all the details. So, yeah, if you have a question for him, make sure you send it in, because he will be on next week to fully explain this system.
Right.
I believe the next was, isn't it?
Technically, yes, but I think we should probably get the Team Fortress 2 update out of the way first, because the next one's a bit of a buzzkill, so we'll probably leave that piece of news until last.
Well, considering since you were making such a fuss about this, you can have this one.
All right. Okay, so for those of you who play Team Fortress 2, which I assume is most of you, there's been yet another one of the Team Fortress 2 mandatory updates where they fix one small thing or another, and they've added in, for you conspiracy theorists out there, they've added in a new body group, which is the Tobor body group. And, of course, that being, for those of you out of the loop, in reference to the robot update, which everyone has been, you know, weeing themselves over. Aside from that, and some minor bug fixes, there is, of course, the new item, the Liquor Locker, which I've got to say, in terms of some of the fairly subpar items that they've selected to be, you know, included in the game recently, I really like the Liquor Locker. Not only does the paint look really good with it, and it's a very nice miscellaneous to add to the Demo Man, which for once is in keeping with his character, but the fact that it can be worn across your crotch is to me a source of endless amusement. Normally I am not amused by such silly things, but the fact that it's an option just makes me grin from ear to ear. And I was actually mentioning to these two earlier that I was making jokes about genitalia in the box, or it having a hole in the side. And I give full credit to whoever it was. You person out there, you know who you are, who put the Liquor Locker on the crotch of the Demo Man, and then added it and gave it the name "A Present for Your Wife." That was good times indeed.
I can pretty much see that becoming the next hottest thing, because, like, especially the Demo Knights are going to be making full use of that, aren't they? Yeah, it's going to keep on birthing, mate. Cheers to that. Or however the Demo Man does it. I can't pull off a British accent, sorry.
I'm waiting for somebody to make a joke about the fact that there's a Manco supply key stuck to the bottom of the crate.
Why, do you get a free key with every purchase, do you?
Oh, heck no. But there is one. If you look at the model, the actual picture of the model, there's a Manco supply key stuck to the bottom of the chest with sticky tape.
That's British ingenuity for you.
Oh, in this case, it's Scottish ingenuity. But anyhow, moving along to the next one. Now, for those of you who are out there who are also viewers of Extra Credits, this will not be a surprise to you. But for those of you who are not, this could come as a quite a random, unwelcome surprise. And this affects everyone who uses the internet. See, now, there's a certain spectrum on which we can broadcast wireless internet. Whether that's with your phone or with a computer or the Xbox or whatever. Anything which broadcasts without using a wire broadcasts through the air on a certain spectrum. And there's a very small spectrum that we can actually, basically broadcast on. For the longest time, this hasn't been an issue. But now, with so many new products and things becoming available which allow us to broadcast on this frequency, we're running, and this is something you're gonna have to really wrap your mind around this concept, because at first it may make you go, huh? We're running out of space in the air to broadcast.
No! How am I supposed to get my daily fix of ponies? No!
Yeah, this hilariously over-the-top response to this problem is pretty accurate, but at the same time, it's quite serious. This is not like global warming, which people say, oh, it's going to affect us in maybe 10, 15, 20 years. It's not even like the sun exploding, which is so unrealistically far into the future that you don't need to worry about it. They're saying we will run out of new or unique frequencies to broadcast on by 2014. That's 2 years from now, we're going to run out of space to broadcast the internet. Let yourself think about that for a moment.
No.
But yeah, obviously there may have been some scientific exaggerations that I've made in there. For example, I know nothing about the global warming issue, besides, the people on both sides of it are incredibly silly. And whether we can do anything to stop it or not, I don't actually know how long or how soon it's projected to start seriously affecting things. But this has a definite fix on it. And yeah, you as an internet viewer, and don't pretend you're not because you're watching this on YouTube, you as an internet viewer owe it to yourself to look it up. We've put the link to that video, the Spectrum Crunch video, in the Google documents for this video. Take a look at it and educate yourself, because it's going to start cropping up a lot more in the next couple of years.
Could you stand for this to happen, Rocket?
No, because then where are we going to get all our ponies and things from?
I know. Finally, someone who agrees with me.
I mean, imagine the next time that somebody like, Princess Cadence gets married, except it'll be in 2014 and you won't be able to watch it.
I'm going to reserve my own slot on the internet now. I'm going to pre-book ahead.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I just have this really... And I'm sorry, people out there who are not familiar with My Little Pony, or indeed the subculture around it, because this next comment will go way over your head, but I just have this image of Pinkamena trying to claw her way through your computer screen and just going, there's not enough bandwidth, I can't choke you. Anyways.
Well, we here at ozradio make no apologies for your lack of pony knowledge. Go educate yourself.
Anyhow, and moving right along, let's transition neatly from saying there's not enough room on the internet for more videos by showing you our weekly videos. I think this works out quite well for all involved. So, Loopy, what have you to tell us about your video?
Alright, mine's actually a 3-part series with the 4th part still to come out. I think I've shown you this in the past, but for those of you, anyone out here a Phoenix Wright fan? Are you a Phoenix Wright fan, Rocket?
I actually have never played the series, but I had a lot of Phoenix Wright cosplayers in my class at one point, so I learned everything there is to know about the game without actually playing it. So
Well,
I guess I'm a fan from a distance.
Well, this is basically it's so far it's a 3-part series. It totals nearly 3 hours to date with all the 3 episodes. Because like the first one's half an hour, the second one's an hour and 10 minutes, and the third one's an hour and 40 minutes. And what they've done is they've basically brought Phoenix Wright to the world of Pony, or the world of Equestria, for those who know what it is, actually. And it's about this really cool storyline where Rainbow Dash is framed for murder, and Phoenix Wright has to defend her. And they do the whole Phoenix Wright thing. They do like the question shackles. They do the like in the court case, you know, the hold it and all the kind of lines they normally do. It's really well written. It's a good story, and like coming from someone who does writing for a career, this is actually an interesting story. I've watched it through twice, and I have not been disappointed either time. So this is my huge. The link that's in the Google documents is to episode 1. So like when you're done with that one, like if you want to keep going, the links should be on the side somewhere, or just type in the name and type part 2 if you can't find it. But it is an actual interesting series, and that's my pick for this week because I've watched it twice.
Indeed.
It actually. And yours is something a little more on the funnier lines, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I say funny. It's funny and horrifying. Now, here's a question for you, Mia. Have you seen Mrs. Doubtfire?
Yes. Oh my gosh! Did you link the horror recut?
Yes, sure did.
I never thought of that movie as being, you know, horror material, but when you see that trailer, that would have been such a good movie.
It would have been amazing. Have you seen speaking of horror recut trailers, because there's a whole raft of good ones, have you seen the original sort of horror recut trailer for Mary Poppins?
No, I haven't. You'll have to link me to that one.
I will link you to it after this podcast is over. It's called Scary Mary, and it actually is terrifying. Like, you got the creepy music playing while, you know, she walks away and her reflection watches her go, or she slides up the stairs, and the kids, like, flying away, the people getting blown away in the wind.
I'll put it to you this way, Rocket. After you watch that, you'll understand why Wheatley both fears and appreciates umbrellas.
Oh, man. Brilliant stuff.
But
actually, there's a really nice piece of fan art that I received a while back, which had made me grin from ear to ear, which had Mary Poppins floating along in the air going, "I'm practically perfect in every way." And she floats past Umbrella Man, who goes, "Yes, I know the feeling." Oh, God, I loved it. But anyway, I will actually admit, as a sort of runner-up YouTube video this week, I was seriously considering relinking to a much older video, but I thought this one really deserved its moment of glory. I was considering linking to the Dynamic Action Team videos again, but as much as I love them, I wouldn't actually want to link them to any new people, just because I'm so disappointed that the series ended way too soon. The first few were so brilliant, and then they just stopped, and I was like,
Not good. But you better watch them. You better watch these videos before 2014. You might not get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, now comes one of my preferred favourite parts of the show. Or do we have to skip to the next bit?
No, we're perfect. Actually, no. You know what? You can do the weekly rant if you want, because you seem to know more about it than I do, and then we'll get into the Starguest spotlight because, one reason or another.
All right. Well, this week my Wheatley rant,
your Wheatley rant.
Yeah, my weekly rant. Yes, I sound like Bugs Bunny for a second. Now, any of you seen and no offense to EA, but come on, you guys do this every frickin' week. You know, you overmarket your games. You know, you put on this big hype, you put on these big commercials, these big promotions. You have all these fancy smancy graphics, and we finally get the game, and it's a load of crud. You know. I'm sick of games over-marketing themselves when they're a piece of crap, you know? Instead of fancy cinematics, put some gameplay into your video so people can actually see what your game is. You know? There's been heaps of examples of Duke Nukem Forever, you know, that have done this, and, you know, it's just... I mean, come on, show of hands. You two have both seen overhyped games, thought it looked pretty good, you got the game, and 5 minutes into it, this sucks.
Yeah.
True? And I bet you can rattle off... I bet you can count I bet you'll need more fingers on your hands than that's happened to you, especially with EA, right?
Well, not specifically targeting EA, but yes, there have been plenty of games which I've found. I look at the advertising and think, oh, that's pretty good, and then I actually play the game and go, ugh.
Yeah, basically, and the reason I'm targeting EA is because it's just more often than not it's happened with EA games to me. So I make it a point to make sure I watch a review of any EA game before I buy it, because EA is basically just screwing me over. So EA has just disappointed me so many times now that I make sure if it has EA on the game, I check a review of it first before I buy it. It's just me, especially when it comes to EA, it's just gotten that bad for me, especially. But
I will point out, in fairness, I know you made the reference to Duke Nukem Forever before, but let's be completely honest for a moment. If you actually got disappointed by Duke Nukem Forever, you really brought it on yourself by actually expecting that anything good could come out of Duke Nukem Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I was expecting more than what actually came, and that was my own fault, but I never expected a masterpiece. I just expected something that was at least halfway decent. And had more than 2-gun limit, what the hell was...
Yeah, exactly. Come on, 2-gun limit. Come on, most modern shooters you have 50 guns.
Oh my god, it was the most... Going into that hive was the most traumatizing thing I think I've done in the last few years. Ugh. Anyway.
But, so to those of you out there who overmarket your games and then expect to sell pieces of crap to make big money, time will catch up with you because people are starting to get wiser and there's more review services out there, so be warned. It will catch up with you. Either that, or Loopy's going to drive you insane.
It's deeply unlikely. I'd say that in more probability, the thing that's actually going to wind up driving them all insane is, let's face it, constant disappointment. But at the same time, you can find places that won't disappoint you. Like, for example, Valve. Valve actually knows what they're doing most of the time. And I do say most of the time.
I mean, I could give you another quick sample if you like. How many of you used to, back in the 90s, enjoy the good 2D Sonic platform games?
You.
Yeah.
And ever since those days, has Sonic just done nothing but disappoint and go downhill every single game release?
Not every single game release. Every single 3D game release, sure.
True. I mean, like, Sonic Generations, the 2D stages are great, then we're back to the 3D stuff, you know? As far as I'm concerned, Sonic was good back when I was growing up as a kid. I used to have two stepbrothers who no longer stepbrothers anymore, but we used to actually clock Sonic Chaos on the Sega Master System every morning before we go to school. There used to be 6 zones. We used to split them up 2 each, and when one person was playing, the rest would get ready for school. We used to do it every single morning for about a year. Same game, no joke. We enjoyed that game so much. So I literally finished the game 365 times.
Good times.
But ever since then, kaput.
You know what? I just took a double check there. Sorry, this is actually no. You know what? This can wait until the next section. We can wait until that moment.
Well, we are ready for the next one. I think I've ranted enough on this, but make sure you check your games. At least watch a review of the game before you buy it. Oh, that looks shiny on the outside. Check it, review, and see the inside.
Wow. Sorry, I've just been double checking stuff, and wow, strange things. Sorry, I made the mistake of peeking down into the email section before we got there. There's some dark and strange things happening down there.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I decided for the sake of saving, well, not for the sake of saving time, but for the sake of not doubling up, most of the questions which are going to be asked to you this week have basically just been extracted straight from the emails. Because a lot of them, well, let's face it, stuff that we're going to probably ask anyway, and we don't want to be repeating ourselves endlessly, so let's get that part of the emails done now in the section with our delightful guest star. So.
The wonderful Rocket, take it away.
Yep, here we go. This week's guest star is one of those lovely folks whose job title is the kind of thing you could only dream about or see in, amazing cartoons and just think, envy, pure envy dripping from my pores. Rocket here is a professor of sequential art and illustration. And for the less linguistically savvy among you, that can range from anything like storyboarding and concept art for films and television to those delightful graphic novels we all know and love. And she is a professor who teaches this stuff. It's like a geek's wet dream. Now, she's been at it for years, presumably, and the effort certainly shows. And I personally have been a fan of hers for years now. Not only does she make a living out of doing something she loves, which in and of itself is pretty damn awesome for anybody who does it, but it's the sort of thing that, people when you're younger say, oh, you could never make a living out of doing that. So in that respect, it's really inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mia, how long have you been working at this glorious profession, and what got you into it?
Oh man, I've been working for over 10 years now. Professionally, when I started getting hired by other people, I think I was 20 or 21, and but I've been drawing comics since I was 15. And what really got me into it was when I was in high school, and I'd read comics way before that. In fact, the first comic I ever read was an issue of Batman, and it was Batman versus the Riddler, and he had his two Riddler chicks, question and query with him, and I must have read that issue 15 million times when I was a kid, because I would just read through it constantly and just be interested in this idea of picture books, that were beyond the single image. And but when I was in high school, I actually I met this guy Chris Sanchez, who became one of my best friends, and he also drew comics, and he was the first person I ran into that didn't kind of treat it as a kid thing. And so we kind of hit it off in high school, and we drew comics together. And then this representative from the Savannah College of Art and Design came down to talk to us, or came up, I should say, to Detroit to talk to us about the school. And she saw that Chris and I had comic pages in front of us, and she said, we have a major for that. And it was the first time that it clicked that, oh, you could do this for a living. And where I really got into it hardcore was we started going to Motor City Con, which is a convention that we have in Detroit. And there I met people like Paul Sizer and Guy Davis, and I started talking to them, and I'd get drawings from them all the time, and they really inspired me to pursue it as more than just a hobby. So I guess that's how I got into it.
That's fantastic.
That is.
Oh,
I just have one very important question regarding all that.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it always Batman comics that people start on?
Well, you know what?
They're amazing.
No, you know what it is I couldn't figure out for a long time. It was between Batman and Conan, because those were the two earliest comics that I still have and I can remember reading. But when I really went back and looked, I would have had the Batman comic first. So it just happens. I think it just happens because Batman is one of those things. He's like Superman. He's pervasive in the culture, and so many people are into his story. I certainly prefer Batman to Superman, and it just happens. I think a lot of us run into him first.
I like Batman as much as an X, but come on, what's wrong with old Sonic comics? Oh,
you know what? I was after my time, though. The Sonic comics, my brother was into them, but you have to remember I was born in '81, so I'm old.
A few years age of age. But
just a little bit.
I was actually considering making a joke at some point saying, are you sure you didn't just pick up a Batman comic and think, I want to be the Batman of comic creation? But you actually did.
I actually did pick up, and I can remember what issue, I can't remember the issue number, but I totally remember what the issue was about. Same thing with the Conan book. It was the first time I'd actually read an adult comic, was the Conan one. And it was, Conan was trying to put together this map, and all of the pieces of the map were tattooed on people's bodies. And in this particular issue, the person was like a zombie he had to kill, and then he had to rip the guy's arm off. And there was this queen that was getting ready in another scene, and it was like the first time I'd seen nudity in a comic or in a book in general. And I remember being like 4 or 5 and being like, wow, this is really cool, because it's just so different than what you were getting in like the children's books and things. And I'm really sorry, Mom, if you didn't realize there was porn in that comic, but there was.
Honestly, I think out of all of that part of that story, I'll be the most impressed if your mother is listening to this podcast.
She'll think it's awesome. She'll be like, I didn't give you a comic like that. And
brilliant.
You should be the first to give. You should personally give the link on YouTube when it's up. It'll be uploaded by tonight our time anyway, so probably by tomorrow for you.
Personally, I'm just chuffed that your first Batman experience was with the Riddler. He's like my favorite. He's my favorite villain.
He's my favorite as well. I don't care what anyone says about Jim Carrey as the Riddler. I was just so happy to see Riddler on screen at some point. I could overlook every flaw about that film just because I was like, yay, it's the Riddler.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I like the Riddler, but he's not my favorite. I have to admit. I'm sorry. He's just too normal compared to the Joker. Sorry.
I know that I knew you, Loopy, would love the Joker, and the Joker is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, but he's a different kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's my kind of brilliant.
In fact,
I will say that Batman animated television series made me fall in love with Mr. Freeze. Like the whole thing they did with him and kind of almost that BioShock section, where we had Nora and everybody else. And you got that really deep emotional character with him. I just thought that was amazing. That series really made me love Mr. Freeze. But if we're talking straight up comics, the Riddler's been there for so long. You gotta love it.
This might sound strange, especially you, Wheatley, but the one thing that the animated series made me fall in love with was actually Ra's al Ghul.
Mm-hmm.
Ra's al Ghul is an interesting character.
Exactly.
Done well.
I find him a very interesting character too. Just like what he stands for and everything. It's just an interesting character to get to know. That's why, minus the Joker, Ra's al Ghul takes the cake for favourite villains in Batman. The
problem, I think, with Ra's al Ghul is that a lot of people either see him poorly or he's presented poorly. Like, here's the thing. Yeah. As much as I enjoyed the first one of the new Batman movies with Christian Bale, I just wasn't. And here's the thing, and it feels almost like treason unto myself, because I couldn't think of a more perfect actor to play Ra's al Ghul than Liam Neeson. I mean, he was brilliant in that role. But I guess it's because they took such liberties with the story anyway. But Ra's al Ghul in that movie felt so anticlimactic, I suppose.
I think they just give him enough to work with. Like, he seemed like such a small bit, but like when, like if you think of the animated series, anytime if you think of the animated series for a minute, anytime Ra's al Ghul showed up, he was like, it was this big cat and mouse game with him, and it just didn't feel as much like that in the Batman Begins, because he was hardly there, and it was mostly the Scarecrow. Not that Scarecrow's not awesome, but it was a lot of Scarecrow and a lot of Falcone, and not enough of Ra's al Ghul in the foreground. And by the time you put him in the foreground, it was, like you were saying, very anticlimactic for his finish.
And that's why, why it was so much better in the second movie with the Joker, because it was from the very get-go, the Joker was the villain. He was the central focal point. Even when he wasn't on screen, you could always sense that he was out there plotting something. Ra's al Ghul, and I know this kind of suits his character more, but Ra's al Ghul was never really in your head. You never really thought about him all that much until he pops up and you're like, oh yeah, you're in this movie as well, aren't you? But honestly, in terms of going back to the Riddler for a second, I must say there's a quotation from him that I absolutely love, and it's kind of appropriate that we like the Riddler and you like the Joker, because he got called a poor man's Joker by Harley Quinn, and his response to that was, I am nothing like the Joker. Why does everybody keep saying that? That clown is only interested in mirth, mayhem, and murder. I, on the other hand, live for mental challenges, games of wit, the chance to outsmart worthy opponents. I gotta admit, I love that moment, because it's just, I myself have spoken to a few non-hardcore Batman fans who know very little about things, and a lot of them have only really seen the version of the Riddler played by Jim Carrey, and if that's all you have to go on, you can totally see why they'd call him a poor man's Joker. But honestly, I was just, it infuriates me every time. Comments made through lack of knowledge. Ugh. Anyway.
That's such a good quote, though. That's such a good way to...
It is. And I'm just reading through the questions, actually. I think we've already answered like another half a dozen of them just for that one rant on Batman.
Let's move it right along into the next question. Sorry, what?
I was going to say, we've answered that one. I think the next one we can ask is, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? Oh, wait, what free time?
No, actually, I try to schedule in free time. I'm not going to lie, when I have free time, I play a lot of video games. I actually just finished Lollipop Chainsaw yesterday, and I got the bad ending the first time because I missed one of the survivors, and I was so mad I actually went back there and I played it again, and I got the good ending. So, can take a couple days off before I beat it in hard mode.
La la lollipop, la la lollipop.
Right. I don't know if that's actually part of the game or not.
They do play the Lollipop song, and anytime you supercharge her, Hey Mickey, You're So Fine plays, which is super happy. As rainbows and hearts are shooting out of your chainsaw and you're whipping people's heads off as you're sparkle hunting. Oh my god.
Rainbow Dash moment.
Oh man, I'm sorry, but whenever somebody mentions the words bad ending, I just have traumatic flashbacks to playing Abe's Odyssey and Abe's Exodus.
Oh my gosh.
Those games did not pull any punches with the bad endings. They were brutal.
They just socked you in the stomach, and they're like, "Oh, you sucked this time around. Here's a bad ending for you." And you're just like, "Oh, that was so bad."
Oh, because the first one is just kind of blunt and brutal. You get dropped into a fan and blown into bloody giblets, which is pretty brutal. But then the second one somehow takes being dropped into a fan and makes it even worse. Do you remember what happens in the bad ending of Abe's Exodus?
It's just. I just
blur.
All I can say is that was the first time I think I ever encountered a truly bad ending, and I can't say that any bad ending has ever lived up to that expectation since. Because, like you say, how do you make being dropped into a fan worse? And then
I will say this. The thing for Abe's Odyssey that got me more than the endings was his casual approach to his teammates actually dying. You walk up, follow me, okay. Dun, 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 dun. You accidentally drop your teammate into a fan. Oops.
Oops.
Yeah. I mean, how can you sit there and just go, oops, when one of your fellow, whatever they're called, dies? Budokans, there you go. I mean, you sit there and you mind control the guy with the machine gun and you drop him into the pit. Yay! Follow me. Okay. Lead him straight into a pit. Oops.
My bad.
Oh, man, I gotta say, I used to all the time. I even do it now, but I don't really do it consciously. I'll catch myself doing it and think, why am I doing that? I just randomly start, quoting characters from the game. And not even in context that makes sense. I'll just be walking along and I'll start reeling out the voice quotes menu. You could go into the menu screen in Abe's Exodus and practice the different voice commands for the different characters that you could, possess. And it has the Glock in there, and I'd just be walking along down the street just going, hey, come here, stay here, do it, kill him!
Actually, I've actually picked up some of those from the Pony series now. On TeamSpeak, they actually picked me up on it. I didn't realise until they picked me up on it, but I've started doing a lot of the, what the hey? I've actually started doing it unconsciously now. I even do it in real life. And they pulled me up on it a few weeks ago, and they're like, did you just say what Applejack says? I'm like, did I? And then they point out, I'm like, I do, so... I because I watch a lot of cartoons, I've got my own. I have my own collection. I've got a bit from this cartoon, a bit from this cartoon, a bit from this cartoon, and I'm like a walking library of cartoon bits, literally, in real life.
I think a lot of people are like that though. We were playing, my friend John and I were playing TF2, and we ended up on a Brony server, and there, if you typed in Scootaloo, of course, it would go Scootaloo, Scootaloo, and
Scootaloo, yes.
We thought that was so funny, and so now really random inappropriate times, when we're playing League of Legends or TF2 or any other video game, we'll just start yelling Scootaloo at each other, and then we started doing it in game too, even on not Brony servers, just because it's so
actually,
it's so out of place.
You've just hit a mark that you might not realise. On the Saxon Hal servers, there's a few people that actually have mimics, so they look like Saxon Hal when they're playing normally. Mm-hmm. And my mimic just happens to be Scootaloo. and I've actually named every single item in every single item and weapon and description as well to base Scootaloo. So, for example, I use the atomizer, and I've got it called Proof Chickens Can Fly.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually do that on the server. I'm like, Scootaloo, and I do that too. The fact you just brought that up was just a funny, huge bit of coincidence.
I just find it so funny because my friend John plays our heavy, and he is this really big, tough, awesome guy. in real life. I mean, he's a total sweetheart, but he's super awesome. And when he says it, it's even funnier because all I can think of is him as the heavy running around being like, scoot, scootaloo, scoot, scootaloo. And especially like we were doing it on this Brony server, and they had been doing it to him, and he has never watched ponies, so he was like, I don't even know what a scootaloo is, and they were horrified that he didn't know who scootaloo was. And they started bringing up all these other characters, and they're like, well, you better know who Apple Blossom is, because if you just don't, I just think that's the saddest thing in the world. So he just started going around saying the Scootaloo thing, and he eventually got them to the point where they were like, really, dude, you have to stop.
Oh, good times.
Did you just say Apple Blossom?
Yeah,
yes.
Technically it's Apple Bloom.
Apple Bloom.
I know, but this is what was said on the... This is what was said on the server, which made,
lucky.
Well,
which made me laugh even harder, because you're just like, wow, that was just completely wrong.
Well, you know what? In terms of choosing mimics, I believe you mentioned before that you played League of Legends, didn't you, at one point?
Yeah, we just started playing. I've been watching League of Legends for a long time, and like we were talking before, any type of RTS, and I know it's not true RTS, but any type of RTS is so painful for me to play. It's the only game type that I got into late, and I am just not great at it because I have that urge to just go in and kill things when you really need to strategize.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, we finally got enough people that we were just like, you know what, we're going to play League of Legends. And a lot of my Dota 2 friends jumped on with us, and I'm sure it's been a really frustrating experience with us trying to get us to do this well, but we have found some luck in it, and Dominion I find is a great mode. In fact, I like Dominion a lot more than normal mode, but Riven is one of my favorite characters, and Morgana, of course, she's really awesome. But I'm really going to say I'm terrible at League of Legends. So
I'll freely butt in here and say I've never played League of Legends, and honestly, the only reason I brought it up, in reality, was because Loopy here mentioned before that he has a mimic on Saxton Hale for playing Scootaloo. My mimic is actually a League of Legends character, and the reason I have that mimic is because I did a fairly good, at least by my standards, a fairly good impersonation of said character when I was playing as him as the boss, which was Gangplank.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so you often find me playing Team Fortress 2, slaughtering people with a bone saw, saying, "Yar, you can talk the talk, but you can't dance with Gangplank."
Oh my gosh.
I was looking for a screenshot of me playing as Gangplank, but the only screenshot I have is crap. So on a completely unrelated note, I'm going to show you this screenshot that I took in Mass Effect when I was playing it. And the only reason I took that screenshot is because I was in this perfectly innocuous conversation with the AI thinking, what the hell is that arrow pointing at?
I was actually going to say two more things regarding love. Another one of our houses is actually Dr. Octonopus.
Oh, Dr. Octonopus. Yes.
And,
are you familiar with ASDF movie, Rocket?
ASDF?
Isn't that a LOL character?
No, it was not. It's not ASDF movie. It's, the Laser Collection. My bad.
Mm.
Anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah. Dr. Octonopus is a boss in our server.
Can you do his 200% rage impersonation?
I can. I'm not sure if it'll work very well at the moment because my throat's been a bit wrecked the last couple of days. So if I start coughing hideously after this, I do apologize, but I'll give it a shot. Yeah.
You're gonna love this, Rocket.
Yeah, assuming it doesn't come out sounding completely crap. Okay, hang on. Dr. motherfucking Octonopus.
Doja.
Oh dear. Anyways, moving right along.
Oh, you cutting out a bit there, sorry, Wheatley.
Moving right along into the next question, before I start doing impersonations from, or more impersonations from Abe's Odyssey, you know, you didn't save our buddies. But guys, it was hard.
If you keep doing Abe's Aussie impersonation, I'm going to tell you to be quiet with my new impersonation.
Good point, and yes. Actually, I'm almost tempted to do it just so we can hear it. Loopy here is the only person who I think can can pip me in an impersonations department in the sense that he does a brilliant impersonation of the Diamond Dogs from My Little Pony.
Not the awful noises, Pony. We'll do anything.
Love it. Anyway, incidentally, this is not an impersonation of Abe's Odyssey, but I will say this. If either of you know actually, legitimately, why this change was made, please let me know. And if any of you listeners know this, please let me know, because I've never understood this. In Abe's Odyssey, Abe has 4 fingers. In Abe's Exodus, the Mudokons have 3 fingers. Why was this change made? I don't actually know. Is there actually a reason for it?
I wouldn't know.
The only reason I know this is because I have that poem memorized where he goes, I had just cut past those slugs when the strangest thing I saw. A big moon was before me, and its face was my paw. Then I fell down a cliff and smashed my head, and some big face appeared and said I was dead. The only reason I remember that is because he puts up his fingers to look at the moon, and there's 4 fingers, and then in the second game there's 3. Why? I don't see the point. But anyway, moving along. So
I think we've covered the next 3 questions actually, almost.
Yeah, I think we've covered the how did you get into teaching or drawing or teaching of drawing.
We've covered favorite comic, haven't we?
Actually, I was going to say, yeah.
Hey, Rip, can I tell you something real quick?
Sure.
The 3 fingers thing had to do with a legal battle.
Really?
Oh, she knows.
Okay, please enlighten me.
Apparently, I'm actually reading this right off of Wikipedia. Certain Japanese pressure groups were offended by the Mudokons having 4 fingers, and most of them working in a meatpacking factory due to a historic Japanese subclass of meatpackers who were looked down upon in society. 4 fingers or showing 4 fingers to another person came to insinuate the other was a member of the subclass because it had become symbolic of the meatpackers who frequently had work-related accidents. Oddworld inhabitants had to alter the design of the Mudokons to have only 3 fingers or else face legal battles and large fines. I remembered I had to do something with a legal battle, and so I was actually looking it up. I'm like, oh, didn't it have to do with somebody owning it? But it actually was for, keeping peaceful reasons. So
okay.
I can honestly say that makes perfect sense, and I feel more enlightened coming out of this now that I actually know that. That's quite bamboozling, although personally I think it would have made a nice metaphor considering that, the Mudokons get horribly mistreated. Anyway, moving on. And we've already got through how did you get into teaching of drawing. I think question 3 pretty much speaks for itself, which is do you enjoy drawing? Well, I seriously doubt that you'd still be doing all this stuff if you didn't enjoy doing it. Let's see. Question 1 here for you. What is your favorite comic? Keep in mind that it can be anything, vintage or new.
Okay.
Or have coffee stains on it.
Or have coffee stains on it. I have a couple. Black Sad and Mecha Inside, which are both they're French comics. I love both of them. Black Sad's got this awesome noir detective storyline, and all of the characters are anthropomorphic, and it's got this beautiful kind of watercolor style to it. Dark Horse actually translated it into English, and you can get the first volume, I know, in like a hardbound copy through Amazon and that's an awesome comic. And then Mecha, I don't know if a lot of people will actually know this one, but it's put out by Delcourt, and the artist on it was this artist Bangle, and I absolutely love Bangle's work. And it's hard to find here in America, so I have to go through other channels to get it. But his stuff is just amazing. And Mecha's a story about it's got my giant robot fetish in it, which I'm a big fan of giant robots. And anyway, it's about these 2 people that are trapped inside this giant robot after it goes down, and the whole crew's being killed by their opponents, kind of a thing. And it's how they get outside. So that's the first book is called Inside, the second book is called Outside, but it's just really beautiful. And then the newest one that I've kind of added to my list that I'm reading right now is a Korean webcomic called Girls of the Wild, and it's this great story about this all-girls school, and every girl that goes to the school is like a massively awesome martial artist, and
I want to go to that school.
It really it's about the one guy that ends up going to the school, and he's like this total wimp, and he doesn't think very much of himself, and it's about how he actually gets trained up and is getting ready for his first fight within their martial arts system. And I don't know, I really like it. I think the pacing of the story is really cool, and I love the artwork. So those are my favorites right now.
I think that gives a whole new meaning to getting your ass kicked by a girl.
Yeah, the main, like the one chick, I wouldn't say she's the main girl, but she's the first one you're introduced to, Queen. She just nails everybody in the first tournament that she's in, and she just looks like a badass. I mean, she's just awesome. But the characters are really, they're fun, and you know, they play off some stereotypes, but they divert in other ways that are just, I don't know, I really enjoy reading it.
Mm-hmm. So, wait, what's this this comic of yours called? Because I would quite like to tell one of my friends about it. He's obsessed with online comics, and I'm sure he's probably heard of it before. But in the event that he hasn't, it sounds right up his alley.
Girls of the Wild. I usually, you're on my Facebook. I usually post every week when it goes up. I post the comic because I'm like, yay, everybody should be reading this. But I'm really big into Korean webcomics right now. Like the stuff that some of their artists are doing is just amazing. There's another one called Kisswood that I got a bunch of people reading last year, and it was just this really beautifully drawn comic, and the layouts are really different because they do that long format where it's super vertical, and that's just, I don't know, I really enjoy them.
Well, this is I've got to be honest, this is a question I want to ask. It's not one of the ones that the viewers have popped in, but
okay.
Yeah, just speaking as somebody who I'm just going to go out on a limb and assume that you've probably read this. I'll actually be really surprised if you haven't. What is your opinion of what has become kind of globally known as the best or the most brilliant, in quotation marks, graphic novel ever written?
Are you asking about Watchmen?
I am asking about Watchmen.
I think I'm out of the loop on this one.
You've never read Watchmen?
I've never even heard of it.
What? Really?
What?
I do, man. I've read some.
Rorschach.
I've read some comics, I admit, but I'm mainly into the cartoons, not the comics. So I'm sorry.
You've never even heard of the intangible blue dong.
Sadly, no.
I'm going to need to educate you after this video is over.
Hey, I've had to educate you on a few cartoons that I thought you should have seen, so come on.
There's a difference between a few obscure cartoons, which I've never heard of, and the most influential, ranked #1 in the world graphic novel that has ever existed. It has been made into a massive movie by Zack Snyder, which has influenced 1 billion cosplayers into walking around in stumpy brown hats and fluffy white masks with ink smears all over them. And, you know, big blue muscle men walking around in their pants because, you know, they can. Anyway, I'll explain.
Sorry about that, dog. Did you guys see the dog in the background then?
Yeah, Rocket, what's your thought on it? Or your
What's
opinion?
my thought on it? I have always enjoyed Watchmen. And I'm not really sure what to say beyond that, because I know there's a lot of people that I'm just going to tell you, like, after they hear this interview, they'll be like, ugh, I can't believe she likes Watchmen. Yeah, you know, but I'm kind of surrounded by people at times that hate on the mainstream culture, but I loved Watchmen. I remember the first time I read it, I thought it was really interesting, and it was really genius, and it was the first time I'd seen superheroes in that light. It was probably, I mean, what led me into reading Watchmen, honestly, was I read The Marquis from Guy Davis. And Guy Davis was one of my mentors. I ran into him a bunch of times at Motor City Con, and he just gave me really invaluable knowledge for the industry. But his comic was the first one that I ran into that was really, after that Conan comic I read as a kid, it was the first one that I saw that wasn't really kiddie-oriented. You know, it had a really strong, heroic character that had demons and wasn't always doing the right thing necessarily, but had, very strong convictions, and it was a very adult story. And I read Watchmen after I encountered the Marquis, and I know I was already in that mindset of like, this is really awesome. I still think Rorschach is one of the best characters. He's one of the most interesting characters by far. I loved everything about it. I feel stupid talking about Watchmen because I just think it's a good book, no matter what anybody says about it.
I heartily agree with you.
I will say I didn't really care for the film, and I wanted to really bad. Like, I'm not one of those people that's like, ugh, they're doing a film adaptation. You know, I didn't get into comics for the movie aspect, but I think every time you have a good one that comes out, like Avengers or Captain America, you know, it's always a different way of looking at the characters, and it's really interesting. And I know I was sitting at Comic-Con, and we saw the first official trailer for Watchmen, and everybody was sitting there, and we were all getting excited, and somebody behind me was like, oh, God, I hope this movie doesn't suck. And I kept thinking the same thing. Because you really wanted to like it. You're like, gosh, if it only could be really good. But, you know, how do you translate all that material down and have it really read and be appropriate? And I'll just say the thing that killed it for me was that long, drawn-out sex scene in... Yeah, like that just got to the point where it felt awkward. And I know what he was trying to go for there, because I actually listened to him talk about it at Comic-Con, but it was just... It fell short of expectation. And going back and watching it again, I don't know, I'd rather read the book. But
I know this is a really silly thing for me to comment on, and it's not at all deep or artistic in any way, but it's just something that I can't help but notice it every time I watch the movie. Is during the sex scene when they're in the little what's it called? Is it called Archimedes, the ship?
Yeah.
Yeah. When they're having sex in Archimedes. And they're playing, you know, the eponymous song in the background, and one of the lyrics, as he's having sex with her, one of the lyrics in the song is, "I tried my best, it wasn't much."
I know.
Oh, God. Why did you pick that song? Oh.
I hate to butt in here, but there is a very important point that I do need to bring up.
Yes.
Remember what I told you before the show, Rocket, about your background friends?
Yes.
Hey guys, how you going? We've been able to hear you the whole time.
I haven't heard them at all, but then maybe I just haven't been listening for them.
I don't know. He's been super quiet. My husband is playing StarCraft 2 in the background with my friend John. So.
Yeah, good times. But God, there was something I was going to say there. That's right. I think in terms of the movie, I'll agree. It's not as good as the comic, but then it could never be as good as the comic. But at the same time, I actually think, and this is a controversial statement that I'm sure the people who are actually fans of Watchmen are probably going to kind of raise their eyebrows at, I think that some of the things they changed for the movie adaptation were changed for the better.
I think you always have to change things for the movie adaptation. Like, anytime you change formats, you have to change stuff just because it's going to... you're working with a different medium, so there's things,
exactly. Exactly.
It's not so much that. It's not so much that is in the sense of they changed major story elements.
Oh yeah.
In a way that I think was actually an improvement. For example, okay, you know what? For the people who really don't want to have Watchmen spoiled, probably just mute this for the next minute or so. But I'll try and make this as quick as possible so that you can, so spoiler warning here.
Wheatley say something quickly. Miracle in itself.
Yeah, spoiler warning. I think that a fake Dr. Manhattan attack made a hell of a lot more sense than a giant alien squid, for a start, because everyone already knew who Dr. Manhattan was, and having him be the supposed force behind the attack when he was gone is a lot more of a tangible threat to people than random giant alien octopus. And I understand in the comics what he was going for, but I just think it makes a lot more sense, the plot they went for in the movie.
I didn't mind the Dr. Manhattan story. I thought that was a good improvement for the DVD, or not the DVD, for the movie.
Yeah, there's that. But the other thing is actually, now this is just a personal thing, and I know that symbolically it's probably not as strong because, Rorschach is meant to symbolize a certain way of thinking and how it couldn't possibly survive in the new world and all that kind of stuff. So when what happens at the end of the story happens, from a personal standpoint, I think that having Night Owl be there to witness it, which he was not in the comic. In the comic, Rorschach is alone when it happens. And I find that to be really tragic. I'm really glad that his friend was there in the movie, but that's the thing. Symbolically, it's worse because, somebody mourns it, whatever. But personally, considering that even though Rorschach is a symbol, he's also a man. And having somebody be there, for me, I was personally a lot more gratified seeing that somebody was there with him, as opposed to not with him. But then again, that's a controversial thing. It depends on whether you value the person more than the symbol.
Then let me get into dangerous territory here and ask you a question, Rev. How do you feel about because I will admit I like Watchmen, but I don't feel strongly enough about this to feel like I should voice an opinion. How do you feel about the new Watchmen series that have been coming out?
I didn't even know that there was a new Watchmen series. Oh wait, no, I did know. I thought you were talking about a TV series.
No, the new comic series that they've been releasing.
I haven't yet had a chance to check it out. I've been looking at it, but okay, now this is one of those cases where I'm speaking purely from an idea perspective, in that I haven't actually read it. I haven't seen any of the issues, so I am in no position to comment on the quality of the stuff itself. What I will say is that I don't think it needs to exist.
I'm of that opinion, yeah.
There was never a point when I thought to myself, hey, Watchmen is a perfectly contained story which is currently ranking #1 in the world. Yeah, I think it needs to be improved or expanded upon. What? Where did you get that concept from? Ugh. It's like the opposite of Men in Black. Men in Black was the first one, at least, was a pretty good movie with a good idea and a lot of potential for expansion. And the TV series, kind of did that. I liked the fact that it actually expanded on that world. That was a good idea. Watchmen is very self-contained, and the whole story begins and ends within the pages of that comic. You don't need to expand on that world because everything significant is already pretty much stated. You don't need to tell us any of the other stuff. It's not important. So I don't really want to know about people's pasts. Anything important that happened in the pasts of these people was explained pretty well in the movies. Rorschach's encounter with that murderer was pretty important, but they already explained that in the story, in the comic and in the movie. So yeah, honestly, I'm just not a big fan. Also, this is not particularly directed at anyone in particular, but it is a comment that I need to make based on an earlier observation by other people here, which is, I'm a firm believer you shouldn't dislike something just because it's mainstream. Dislike something because it's crap. Don't dislike it because it's mainstream.
That's a great way to put it. Dislike it because it's crap, not because other people like it. That's...
Yeah. Fun fact, a lot of people like a lot of things usually because those things are good. There are exceptions. There are some things that a lot of people like that are actually just crap. But a lot of the stuff that people like is really, really quite good. It's a simple fact of life. I've heard a lot of people bagging out Halo, for example, because let's be honest for a moment. Halo's multiplayer community is not brilliant. But there's a lot of derogatory comments that go on in the multiplayer community of Halo. But the story is perfectly good. The games themselves are fine, and they're popular for a reason, because they're damn fun to play.
I enjoyed the single player of that, actually.
Yeah, it cracks me up when I've had students in the past, and they're like, oh, I can't believe you like Halo. I'm like, well, damn right I liked Halo. Halo was a good series. And, like, even my call name for gaming is Noblest6. And I remember when Halo Reach was coming out, both my husband and I were super excited for that game. I love the way that, especially for Halo, I love the way that they advertise, like ODST and Reach coming out. And it just builds you up to the point where you're like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I will say that whole story of Reach, we played through in one sitting because we just couldn't put it down. And that last scene, like the last battle you fight, we restarted it 3 times because we thought we were doing it wrong. And we were so, we were like so into the character and we were so determined to save the day that when we finally realized, what it was. Yeah, you have to. And it's I loved it. I thought
agree
it was
completely.
And I don't give a...
We better move on before you guys get too distracted.
We will move on, but I have to make one comment before we move on, which is that the most epic moment for me that I distinctly remember in the first game is the final warthog run along the back of the Pillar of All.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I will never forget how pumping that was. I used to play that over and over. And even now, if my radio is broken in my car or I forgot to bring my iPod and I don't have any music, on a long trip home during the night, I'll catch myself humming do-do-do-do, 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 do-do-do-do-do. Good times. Anyway, so let's move on. We've done the what is your favorite comic? Have you had any interaction or have you met any of the so-called major comic makers or writers? And if so, who?
Yes. This is this is awkward. I don't like to name drop, so I'm
okay. If you don't want to talk about it,
no. I'll keep people out of it, only because I think it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's kind of strange, especially you have to understand, I did not get into this industry to be famous, and I know it confuses a lot of people, but I'm kind of a recluse, and I get really, this is only the second or third interview I've ever done, because I just don't like talking about stuff, but, and I'm a hermit, but, working for the college, I get to meet, pretty major people every year. We have two events. We have one called Editors Day, where we have a lot of editors from the various companies come down, and they meet our students and they get one-on-one time with them. And then we also have something we call Comics Art Forum, where we invite a lot of artists from the industry to come, and they do workshops with the students and then portfolio reviews. So I've met a lot of really cool people through that. And our last Editor's Day was actually, it was May 18th, somewhere in there, May 15th. And I actually just went to dinner with a bunch of really awesome editors. And I walked them to karaoke afterwards because they were getting lost. And I had a really lovely conversation with one of the Marvel editors on some of the projects that she had been working on this last year. And that was really cool. But I don't know, I know a lot of people want to be like, oh man, yeah, have you met this famous person, that famous person? And I always look at them as they're just people. So I probably wouldn't have anything that you want to hear anyway that would be super interesting, because I would just be like, wow, they ate green tea ice cream for dessert. That was really cool.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And honestly, at the moment, most of these questions now that we've gotten into are just questions that have been emailed in by viewers. So,
no, it's all fine. I know that's something everybody's interested in. I'm probably the worst person to ask, because I just feel awkward talking about people.
Yeah. On a related note, I feel exactly the same way. If I meet someone famous, I'm not going to go, ah! I'll just treat them like I would meeting some random person in the shop.
Actually, you know what? Can I use this point to say, there are some people, though, that I do know that I don't mind name dropping. Jarrett Williams was one of my classmates, and he's working for Oni Press right now on a series called Super Pro KO. And I know the first graphic novel's already out, the second one's already out, and he's continuing on and working on the rest. And Jarrett's stuff is really cool. So if you have a chance, check his stuff out. And Madeline Rupert was one of my students. She does the webcomic Sakana, which you haven't read it. If you haven't read it, it's on mangamagazine.net now, and it's a really, really funny story, and Matt is just an amazing artist and a funny, awesome person, and I would highly recommend checking them out, because they're super awesome.
Actually, truth be told about the person who will remain nameless, I'll tell you guys after the show, but just because I don't want to get into it too much, but I actually met them in the toilet of all places, and I was in one of the cubicles, and he came in to wash his hands, and I had a chat with him, and I figured out who he was straight away. He's like, how'd you know that? I'm like, mate, what, you think I'm going to scream just because it's you? It's like, you're probably the first person who hasn't.
I have a funny story I'll tell you about one of my classmates. They posted to Facebook. He works in New York, and he was on the subway, and he thought he saw my office mate, one of the other professors at our school, and he was like, no, there's no way that could be John, because John is down in Savannah. And he kept looking. He's like, no, that's definitely John. So he chased after him, and he yelled out John, and he finally got up to the guy, and it turned out to be Ethan Hawke. And it's so funny, because for years we've told like John's heard that he looks so much like Ethan Hawke, and in this case, somebody mistook Ethan Hawke for John. So
that is quite amusing, I must say.
It was.
But
we better move on before we get too sidetracked. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll move on here. It's good times, even if let's be honest. Sometimes we do freak out on the inside, even if we make a good show of it on the outside.
Oh yeah, true.
Next one. Question 3. Out of all of your artworks that you've done, which one are you the most proud of, or which one do you like the most, if you can possibly name such a thing?
Oh man, that's awkward. Which one do I like?
Yes, here at ozradio, we love putting people on the spot like this.
I myself, while you're thinking about that, I myself had an awkward moment the other day where my mother asked me to show me some of the stories I'd written, because she always heard about how much people loved my stories, but she never actually read any of them myself. And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my god, my mother's like a massive reader, like, you can't see it here. You can't see this, viewers, or listeners, obviously, but my entire house is basically one huge library. You can't walk into a room without having at least one bookshelf that stretches to the ceiling. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, what have I done that's actually any good to show to my mum? And I'm just looking through these dozens and dozens and dozens of stories and just going, crap. Well, that one might be okay.
Yes, anytime anybody asks you that question, you're like, oh, do I have any good work? I don't know. I'll say I like my most recent work. I've been doing a lot of concept stuff recently, and I just posted not too long ago.
Was that the forest?
I actually like that one. That was the first all digital environment that I've painted that had no underdrawing to it. Like I usually draw and ink first, and I've been trying to learn to paint without needing to rely on line at all, which is tough when you're really like a line person. So that's been something I've been going into. But the weapons that I just did for Good Grief, I was really happy with, because I've had that idea for a really long time, and the writing has been there, but I've never posted any images from it. And I started looking at redoing some of that series. And I was like, well, I'll do some concept art for it. This will be fun, just as a fun sort of summer thing to do. And I don't know, those weapons I thought came out like I had in my head for once, which is always a good thing when it comes out exactly what you were imagining. And you're like, yes, that was great. And I had so much fun doing them. I remember sitting there, and after every one, I'd like get up and be like, yeah, I finished another weapon. This is so good.
Success!
Oh. Yeah. On a similar note, have you ever made any comics? If so, which ones? If not, would you like to?
Yes, I made several actually. I have our series that I'm running with John Verrill. I'm finally starting on my longtime series Rocket, the second star, which we just put out the prologue, and we're supposed to continue it at the end of June. It's tentative right now because we've been deciding between publishing and web publishing for a while, and we're still not quite sure. but that one's going on, and I'm just for fun working on Good Grief right now. But I've also worked on series like I did the Twilight Zone for Walker Publishing, which I will say that series I love because they sell it at Walt Disney World in the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror gift shop. And the first time I walked in and I saw it there, I was like, oh my gosh, they're selling my books at Disney World. This is great. So
I can't wait till I see my cartoon on TV. It's like a dream come true when that stuff happens to you, isn't it?
Yeah, well, like when you run into it, it's just that moment where you go, oh man, I really did do that. And
yeah, it is. I'm still waiting for that, but I don't know what you feel, but yeah, it is.
Most recently, I just did this comic, Princeless, which is about a princess that gets tired of waiting for a prince to come save her, and she decides to take action into her own hands and matters into her own hands, and she rescues herself, and then she goes off to save her sisters. And that one, it was the fastest comic I've ever done. With the deadlines, it honestly, one of the issues took me 3.5 days, and I did it between the end of the quarter and Thanksgiving here. And then the other took me I didn't have a deadline that really took longer than a week. And so the whole 4 issues were pretty much done in the course of a month, over a year. And then I did the really cool thing with that series is that I got to do a crossover story with Jim Zub, of Skull Kickers from Image Comics. So we had a 3-page comic with
Very cool.
Adrian and Dwarf, and them kind of getting into a fight in the shop, which was awesome. But that series just got nominated for 2 Eisners, and I think it was 5 Glyph Awards, and we just won 2. The book got 3 of the Glyph Awards. At the
7 nominations. That's damn good.
Yeah, it was really, and for a book that came out through an independent publisher, because Action Lab is still really new, and their books have been getting really great reviews. But it was surprising. Like, we knew it was going to get attention because the subject matter was something that nobody else was really dealing with at the time. But it was surprising how much attention it got. And it was good. I mean, it was one of those things, like, I turned to my husband and I said, I thought I'd be dead long before I ever got an Eisner nomination. Like, that was nothing I was ever expecting. And getting a Glyph Award nomination was great, because Glyph Awards is they're for diversity in comics, which is something that I preach in the classroom. I'm like, we need more just diversity across the board in all of our entertainment. And
that's very true, yes.
So it was amazing. I can't even describe that. I'm still kind of floored.
Anyway.
I should congratulate you on that. I mean, the only thing that I have to look forward to in seeing my own work on any form of capacity beyond my own website, the only thing that I can look forward to at any point is, are you familiar, I assume you probably would be, are you familiar with romantically apocalyptic?
Yes.
Yes. The part, you know how he's making a live action series?
Yes.
Yeah, I wrote the pilot episode for that.
Did you really?
Oh, really?
Yep. If you look on my DeviantArt page, I'll actually grab the link for you to now. If you look on my DeviantArt page, you'll actually find I have the original script, because it was.
Awesome.
Hang on a second. Let me see if I put it in under RA or.
We got one last of this set of questions. And I really like this one. Have you made any significant impressions to any of the students you've taught?
Well, that's pretty subjective, and I'd say it ultimately comes down to the students who would really be asked that question. But
that would be a question to ask my students. I will say, I'm going to say this because I think this is really cool. I had one student this year, Jen, who she came to me. I'm an adjunct at the school, which means that the school says I work part-time, but I actually am there like 80 hours a week. So I don't know how part-time that is. But I had one student that came to me, and she came to me like 2 days after my birthday in September, and she said to me, I really want to do visual development for animation. And everybody's telling me that I need to aim lower, and I need to realize that I probably won't be able to do this with my life. But would you look at my, I hear you're the concept art teacher at the school, and would you just look at my work and tell me if you think it's worth anything? And I looked at her portfolio, and there was, the reason that she was sending this was there was this visit from Pixar that was coming up. Because we have a lot of big studios come to see. And there was this visit from Pixar coming up, and she really wanted to put in for it, but she wasn't even sure she'd be able to get in. And I looked at her portfolio, and I was just like, man, this is somebody who needs to be seen. This is somebody who could definitely do visual development for animation. So she came in, and we went out to coffee, and we talked for like 4 hours about, where she was and what she needed to do. And she worked with me for like 20 days, right up until the Pixar thing. And she was the only visual development person that they saw the whole time that they were there. And that made me feel really good. But what was really more awesome is that she's continued to work with me over these past couple months, so since September. And she just graduated, and she just got confirmation today that she got her internship at Leica, which is the studio that did Coraline. So I was so happy for her. I was so happy for her, because this is somebody that.
So she got in.
She got in, and that's the thing that kills me. Is like, you'll have people that everybody tells them no, and that was actually why I got into teaching. Was I had people that looked at me and they were like, well, you need to aim lower and you need to lower your expectations, and that's a terrible thing to tell people. You should always should be like, aim higher. You have to work harder, And, like we were talking earlier, due to a medical condition, like my hand doesn't completely work properly. And I did have to kind of relearn how to do things at one point. And it's hard sometimes when you're working like that. And you're just like, man, if only I had the full capabilities of everybody else. But you can't look at it that way. You have to look at it as like, these are my full capabilities. I just need to practice harder. I need to work for it more. And she did. She worked her butt off for this position. And she made so many cool industry contacts, and she was like, she got this concept art club started at the school, and she got everybody involved, and she did all these talks for my classes and for other people. And anytime I had anybody visiting, like we had a Pixar sketch artist come to my class, and she was right there being like, hey, would you look at my portfolio and talk to me about this a little bit? And today she finds out that she's going to like us. So that was super good. I was so happy for her.
Oh yeah, that just makes your day. That really does.
It
Things
really
like that.
does. Like that's what, that's what you look forward to as a teacher. Is you look forward to those moments where your students hit success, and it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That is fantastic. That's an inspiring story, and I happen to agree with Luffy on the next question. Asks, do we even need this one? And I know what they're referring to. I know what they are, but I think for the sake of keeping this at least semi-respectable, because I think it has probably been by far one of the more, if not the most respectable and intelligent interviews that we've actually had on the show, I think I'll leave that last question out.
What, you mean this is the first intelligent person we've had on the show?
I won't say it's the first intelligent person we've had on the show, but it's certainly been the most intelligent conversation and actual, interesting debate.
I'm so curious, though. What was it about the trains? What does that mean?
Don't.
I will explain, because, I'm sure the person would be bitterly disappointed if I didn't at least mention it. Are you familiar in any way with ASDF movie?
I don't think so.
I'll link it to you after the thing is over. There's a character who pops up occasionally during the show, and his entire function in the it's sort of like random things. I think you've seen the Laser Collection. It's in a similar vein to that, where his only purpose in the show is to pop up and say, "I like trains," and then a train will just slam into somebody randomly from the side, and that's pretty much the entire thing.
All right. Moving right along, we do have to get the show going. I mean, we have quite a bit to still cover.
Yeah.
So you better make this a quick Gamer Insight.
Yeah, I will try and make this as quick as possible. And by the way, thank you so much for that delightful interview. That was wonderful. And
thanks for having me.
We're not done yet.
We're not.
I know.
You're not going yet.
I'm just saying thank you.
No problem.
Talk about the games now.
Yeah. This next part is half Gamer Insight, half me ranting. This is like the reject for the weekly rant. So let's just kind of go. I'll try and make it as quickly as possible. Downloadable content, done well versus done poorly. It's endlessly discussed, and a lot of people honestly say, now, you can't really say this in the terms of, obviously Valve does the best downloadable content because the Team Fortress stuff is all free, and, you can get it through the game, and you can just buy stuff. Yeah, that's great, and it's always fun to bring up that argument, but I'm talking more in terms of big, chunky additions to games rather than the occasional weapon or a hat thrown into it. Now, I'm going to use two examples. One done very, very well, one done very, very poorly. Now, I shall start off with the one that was done well, and you've all heard me rant about this one because I talked all about it last week. The Binding of Isaac, Wrath of the Lamb, which is, in and of itself, Wrath of the Lamb is practically just like an entire new game added on and stuck and meshed into the first one. It has all the same gameplay with, a couple little things added into it, but the important thing to note is that not only did it add awesome new objects and enemies and bosses and a whole new ending to the game and new achievements and new challenge modes and trinkets and all this other cool stuff, the most important thing to note about it is that even though it was buggy as hell for the first few days, which is only to be expected after a new update, it seamlessly merged with the original game. So you don't need to install a whole new product, or you don't need to start a new game. And this is what I'm actually looking. I wasn't going to bring this up, but it just popped into my head. I'm leaning forward on my desk here, and I'm looking very strongly at Fallout New Vegas, and every time it brings out a new DLC, you can't finish the game, otherwise you can't go back and do the DLC. Ugh. Anyway, that was really, really good. That was an excellent way to do DLC, and I full props to Mr. McMillan for his fantastic work on that. And I promise that's not just because I'm an enormous Binding of Isaac fanboy and think it's absolutely brilliant.
And $20, I guarantee you everyone will see what your bad one is coming.
Yeah. Seriously though, just take a moment to yourself and think to yourself, what DLC has come out recently that has been panned by everyone and is about to be panned by me?
As much as I love the character, yeah.
As much as that should also be another tip to you. I love this character so much.
Me too.
And
I want to take her on a date.
Here's your final big clue. She was my favorite character in the Batman animated series just because she broke my heart so badly during one of those scenes. Seriously,
she came from the Batman animated series too.
I know.
She was not in the original.
Yeah, she was a unique creation of that show, which makes it so brilliant that she's come so far since then. I am, of course, talking about Harley Quinn. And the DLC I am referring to is, you guessed it, Harley Quinn's Revenge. Oh God, why, oh why, just God, oh why. Now, I was talking just before, to use the example of the Binding of Isaac, they took the two things, seamlessly merged them together. Harley Quinn's Revenge is an entirely separate menu on Batman Arkham Asylum. Not Arkham Asylum, Arkham City. Now, you've got, for example, there's the three things there. There's start new campaign, play challenge mode, play Harley Quinn's
Revenge.
It's an entirely separate game, which is, yay, you get to play as Robin. Look at all the damns I don't give. You know, it's so linear and so not free. The fact that they let you go around the steel mill to pointlessly beat people up is just it's a shamefully thin veneer on what is basically a linear story-driven game. And that's fine if you were making DLC to Arkham Asylum, which was pretty much just, it had a veneer of open-worldedness, just enough to keep you interested, but mostly was just a linear story-driven thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but Arkham City is very open-ended. You could go anywhere and do whatever you wanted. They've restricted the entire city to this one tiny little area and changed it just enough and introduced new reskins for bad guys. Oh, wow. It was expensive rubbish. Like, if it had been a hell of a lot cheaper, I probably wouldn't have minded so much. But as it
how much? Well, I haven't got it myself yet. How much are they asking for it?
More than I would expect. We'll put it this way. They're asking more than they were asking for the Binding of Isaac expansion, for a start. Considering when Wrath of the Lamb first came out, it was like $3. But just doing a double check here. Yeah, Harley Quinn's Revenge is $10. And,
it's 10 here.
Yeah, exactly. It's $10 here as well. And honestly, $10 too much. $5 at most, I would say. Just, I know it's more difficult to program, and that the Binding of Isaac is all, it's all done in Flash, and, it's very simplistic, and there's a lot of graphics to render. But let's be honest, if you're going to make a DLC for your game, make it well, please, so that I don't get to the end of this experience and think, and I know that Rocket here isn't the biggest fan of Arkham City, but I'll say I really enjoyed it, if only because it was fun to kick the crap out of the Riddler. It was fun, and I enjoyed it. I thought, this is some really good moments. And let's face it, Hugo Beard, I was about to say Hugo Neckbeard. Hugo Strange and his amazing neckbeard and his sexy voice made that game for me. Just like, brilliant. And I came out of it feeling really, really good. And I'm like, Harley Quinn.
Please don't spoil the game for those like me who haven't finished it yet.
What?
I still haven't finished that game yet.
But Hugo Strange is in it. That's not a spoiler.
I'm saying don't say any more about it, please.
I won't, don't worry. All is well. And I think
I'm about a quarter of the way through it now.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm not going to say any more about that. What I will say is that after such a colossal climax, it was just a disappointment to go back and play such an anti-climax as Harley Quinn's Revenge. I mean, maybe it was better for people who had played Arkham City ages ago, and they had a few months, like 6 months or so, to wait for Harley Quinn's Revenge to come out, and they could kind of re-spark their interest in the game. But for me, who had just finished the game and like hours before and then went into it, bitterly disappointed. I was massively upset by that. So honestly, unless you really just want to get it for completionist's sake, or you're an achievement whore like me, I wouldn't recommend it. Go buy, you know what, here's what you should do with that $10. Go buy, if you haven't already, The Binding of Isaac and The Wrath of the Lamb. And if you've already bought it, buy it again for a friend. That's much better use of your money.
Oh, yes. Anyway, the next topic is actually quite interesting, especially considering our guest star this week. Now, one thing it's kind of like we're having 3 weekly rants this week, isn't it? But anyway, now there's one thing I've noticed, especially being a creative person myself. I write some amazing things. Sometimes I see artists draw stuff. I see musicians make amazing soundtracks. I see good people that are good with sounds make awesome remixes. They put a lot of time in it. Now, whether you don't like it or not doesn't mean you should sit there and go, "Ha ha, you're crap. You shouldn't use blah 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 blah." Have a little respect for someone that's taken the time to make something, right? If you don't enjoy it, go find something else you do enjoy. I am personally sick to death of people coming up and randomly, especially, I watch this, even something like a song remix. I see a song remix on YouTube. It was half decent. It's not the best I've ever heard. And then I go down in the comments, "You suck. You shouldn't do this anymore." And I'm thinking, right, are these people, is the only skill you guys are good at, you can creatively say how bad people are. Is that your only skill? Honestly, if you come across something and you have nothing good to say about it, don't say anything at all.
Unfortunately, that's just never going to work.
Yeah, but
it's a lovely pipe dream, but...
It is. But have you guys, I assume, Rocket, you've experienced some of this, especially with your own work, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice burn there.
No, you've run. I think every creative runs into it, especially nowadays. My students and I have talked about this at length because one thing that I will not allow them to do in the classroom and it's not to blame DeviantArt for this because it's certainly not necessarily the perpetuator, but you see it a lot on there, is critique by comparison, where you'll put up a piece and somebody goes, "Wow, this is just like Bleach," or "This is just like Naruto," or "This is just like Supernatural," and you're like, "Thanks, it has a character in a trench coat, so I guess it's exactly like that." And it's very, in most cases when you call the person out on it, they don't mean it as a negative. They actually mean it as a positive. But rather than actually knowing how to say something in a complimentary sort of way, or in a negative way that's constructive, they rely on something that they actually do know about because they don't have the vocabulary to really express what they're trying to say about it, whether it's a like or dislike. But the other side
that's very true.
The other side that we have is that and this is me going to be talking about growing up with the dinosaurs for a moment. Before we had the internet where everybody could be on and talking and directly interacting with the creators, you really had a gap between you and the person creating to a certain extent. Like, when, I was younger and we read a novel or we read a comic book, you could send a letter in to say, "Hey, I like this," or "Hey, I dislike this." But that was a lot of effort. It wasn't like you could just get online and type a quick Twitter comment or type a quick Facebook post or a DeviantArt comment. And it created almost like a natural sort of respect for the author because they were this mystical creature that was out there, or the artist that, they weren't accessible. There was a lack of accessibility.
But these days, yeah.
And I think that helps a lot actually in terms of creation, because having that lack of accessibility, it doesn't have that everybody can do it feeling to it, or this person is like my best friend. And there's a lot of colloquialism that happens nowadays that maybe wouldn't previously. And I don't want people to take this as I'm completely knocking it, because I personally find the phenomenon kind of fascinating from an academic standpoint. And I don't know if I say that in like a positive light, but I'm not trashing this. It's just like when I have a great example of this. recently I was approached online by, and I hate to use this example because it is the age, but I was approached by a 13-year-old girl who mistook me for somebody else. And the way that she approached me was completely sort of like Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls on drugs, is how I would I don't know how else to put it. I mean, she was really hyper. She was like half typing in readable English. She was using a lot of colloquialisms. Half the page was like lulls and ones and exclamation marks. And she was asking for information that not only could I not give, but it was really rude to ask for in terms of like creative information, whether this person is a friend of mine or not. Like, you just wouldn't ask something so personal.
Yeah. I mean, it's like going up to a girl you've just met and asking her what size her butt is.
Exactly. Or being like, what size bra do you wear? And expecting them to answer without any issue. And, I wrote back a professional email because I don't believe in being vicious about that stuff, but I can understand where creators get really upset because it's disarming at some points because you're like, wow. And especially when it's a nasty comment that you get, not even like just somebody approaching you, but when somebody really just dislikes your artwork or they try to insinuate that you're somehow plagiarizing, like that's always a fun one to deal with, where they're just like, well, I feel like you're just rehashing Batman, and you're like, but I drew a princess.
You know what one I got myself, and I get this quite a lot, to the point where I actually commissioned someone to draw a picture of how stupid it is. Yeah, it is one for you. Take a look at that picture that I just linked you to. That's the one I get most.
Oh my god. Yeah, no, that's the kind of stuff that you just...
Yeah.
Yeah, I get people saying, oh, this character's just a rip-off of Psycho Mantis. What? Have you played Metal Gear Solid?
The big issue I have with it is that it's very, being creative is, getting kind of artsy-fartsy here for a moment. Anytime somebody is doing something creative, whether they're writing, whether they're drawing, they're making a video game, anything. They're putting themselves out there in a very personal way, and it's very easy to tear into them and just be like, this is shit, this is whatever, but it's a lot harder to try to encourage somebody to get better. It's a lot harder to try to encourage what they're doing right now. But I think there's so many vicious people out there. It would be nice to not see so much of that.
I'll interject here and say this. I used to actually do reviews online as a bit of a hobby. And I will say this, if you have to offer some criticism, there is a proper way. I mean,
there's a constructive way to do it.
I mean, you know what? I love if people reckon I can do something better. I'd love to hear their opinion. I'm all for constructive criticism. Oh, Loopy, loved your story. It was very decent. I think you could do this a bit better. Here's a few suggestions on how you could do it better. It might do better if you replace this with this. If you have something, if you think you could do something better with someone's work, offer some constructive criticism and give them some suggestions. Don't just sit there and go, oh, it's crap. Why was it crap? I don't know. It was just crap. What? There's always one. I will say this. There's one thing I always trip people up on, especially someone comes along and says my stuff's crap. I ask them why is it crap. They can't give me an answer. I always love getting them like that.
Yeah, that's always frustrating. Is when you're like, well, what don't you like about it? And especially when you're earnest about it, you're like, well, if there's something really off, I'd love to hear it. And because I think a lot of people also think that artists don't want to grow, or that they're just, you should always be growing. There should never be a point where you just stop. But I think the critique is approached in a bad way, or it's not really critique, it's just hateful comments. But the other big thing that this is a personal thing for me. Sometimes an artist of whatever level that they're at will just put work out there to say, hey, look at this thing that I've done. And what kills me is that there's this prevalent feeling that we all, it's our God-given right to critique and to knock those people down for putting it out there. It's like sometimes it is just a hobby, or sometimes it was just done for fun, or sometimes it wasn't some great work of art, that you expect to be a masterpiece or something. Or sometimes It's just practice. And, you know, the idea that you're always having to be constantly bombarded by critique gets old after a while. I think critique is very important, and I think it's something that if you want to be a serious artist, that you've got to grow a real thick skin and be able to take. But I do think a lot of people mistake that idea of you need a thick skin for let me constantly bombard you with hate. Because you can't grow under those circumstances. I mean, like, take Jen, for example. She had so many people telling her she couldn't do it, and she really just needed one person to be supportive and say, I think you can do it. You just, like, here's something I would do if I were in your shoes to pursue that. So I think it's very difficult for most creators. And I know you've experienced it, both of you have experienced it. But I think it's more difficult nowadays than it used to be because everybody, especially with the internet, everybody has access to you, and there's that pervasive idea that anybody can do this stuff, and it's not really a talent. It's just something that we kind of poop out, you know?
Well, speaking of high praise, our first email here actually has a little message for you. He's like, hello, Matt the Mighty, here as usual. Matt the Mighty is a regular emailer. And he says, I can't believe you got an amazing drawer on the show. She is so, I can't even describe it. You are awesome, he says.
He says, rocket shoes, don't stop drawing.
Mm-hmm. I think Matt commented on my DeviantArt. I saw him, I think it was him the other day, and I was like, oh, that was really sweet. He left me a really nice comment.
Oh,
it was Matt. He was like, Wheatley told me about you, looked you up, shat my pants, you're truly an amazing drawer, don't stop doing what you do best. That was so sweet. Like, you know, even as a professor, I'll tell you, I have my super down days where even if I know something intellectually, when I'm sitting down to draw it, I'm like, oh, God, this is just total crap. What am I doing with my life? And,
nice picture.
Like, I know I was having one of those days and I got Matt's comment, and because I was trying to learn how to paint, and that was so frustrating. And then I got that comment. I was like, I'm going to buckle down and shoot through this. I can do this.
Well, there you go, Matt. You're a bit of an inspiration. There you go. Anyway, we've already
sorry, I'm just going to say, before we move on into the email section, when you said, I was just cleaning out my DeviantArt inbox, because every day I come on there's like 5,000 new pictures that I need to look at, and I'm like, ugh. But speaking of pictures that, you know how you say you have to put art out there that, you know, may not be the best stuff you've ever done, but, you know, you just felt like putting it out there because you did it. I just put a link in the Skype conversation box of a picture. Not the most technically brilliant picture ever, but it made me laugh.
Hey, I got to ask, could I have a link to your DeviantArt Rocket? I got to check out some of your stuff now.
Oh, sure, yeah, I'll send it to you.
I'm pretty sure I already gave you one, but we'll type it out again.
Yeah. And anyway, but as we move on, like the rest of Matt's emails, all the questions we've really covered above, so we'll skip that just for now. And he's like, is all right, that is it for me. Matt the Mighty, your loyal podcast listener. So thank you again, Matt, for some of your questions were asked above, so either that or they were repeats of other questions.
Actually, no, the reasons why I didn't, there are 3 questions of his we do still need to do. Even though the first one we have, and the reasons why I didn't put those ones up there is because the thing said that they weren't just for rocket shoes, they were for all creators.
Oh, those ones. Okay.
Yeah.
Best thing I have ever drawn. I'll go first. The best thing I've ever drawn is a map, because apart from the only form of drawing I am any good at, apart from stick figures, is actually cartography. Mm-hmm. I can do cartography. I can't do anything else. Worst thing I've ever drawn, a stick figure. Well, let me rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. Worst thing I've ever drawn, anything that's not a map. So anything that's not a map is the worst thing I've ever drawn. I don't draw. I can't draw to save myself. I just can't do it. Pen, paint, on computer, I can't draw. And if you were the best drawer in the world, which I'll never be, and could draw anything, what would you draw? I'll let you guess.
Yeah, I know exactly what you'd be doing, mate. Good times would be had.
Oh, yeah, if I could draw that, I would, but I'm actually commissioning someone to draw it, so when it comes out, I'll show you what I would draw if I had a perfect world.
Funnily enough, I've been able to successfully bring up in links both of the things which are my answers to those 2 questions, and I know there's a third one, but I'll get to that later. First off, what is the best thing I've ever drawn? Now, again, my pictures, I'm not a strong picture maker. I'm a photographer and I'm a writer. I'll actually even provide a link to what I consider to be the best thing I've ever drawn. And it's still, by the standards of most people, total garbage. But for whatever reason, I really like it. I know it's actually crap, but I really like it, just personally. I really like the visual image for that one. That picture just there, which I linked to you to, is the picture that I am the most proud of. It's very...
Oh.
Yeah, that one.
That's interesting.
Yeah, creepy as hell. But yeah, that one I'm the most pleased with. And
you know what would make that even creepier?
What?
If one of them had a gas mask on.
No, they're cultists. They're medieval-style cultists who basically live inside a mountain and worship a giant snake woman made of lapis lazuli. But whatever.
So they don't live under a bridge and wait for people to walk across it that charge them a toll?
No. And they're not the amnesiac troll from the 5-second films who says, before you cross this bridge, you must answer 3 questions. Where am I? Where am I? Where am I? But,
I know 3 better questions than that. You guys probably get a laugh out of this.
I know what they're going to be.
What are they?
Let's see. I was going to say, what is your name? What
exactly.
is your quest? What is the approximate speed velocity of an unladen swallow?
Exactly.
Yeah. But,
you know me too well, Wheatley.
Good times. And the one which I think is the worst thing I've probably ever drawn. I've drawn some really, really crap things over time, but honestly, even though this one isn't probably, from a technical perspective, isn't the worst thing I've ever drawn, I just don't like it. Mainly because it didn't come out at all like I was hoping it would, and I put it up anyway because, I did it, might as well. And yeah, that one, I was going for something else, but it just didn't come out the way I was hoping it would.
So, people just thought it was a bright idea?
No, I thought it was a bright idea. And the idea is sound. There's nothing wrong with the idea, it's the execution that's crap.
Fair enough.
But yeah. Anyway, and in terms of the third question, if I was the best artist in the world and I could draw anything, what would I draw? Honestly, it would mainly be my friends. Lots and lots and lots of pictures of my friends. My dream picture, which I know will never exist because A, I'll never be able to draw it myself, and B, I'll never be able to find an artist who I could commission to do this many people in one picture, is I would love to draw the entire Lovelorn collective, all of the artists and friends that I know and hang out with frequently, all together in one picture in their own character costumes, in a slightly comic, like a slightly cartoony visual.
What would you draw me as then?
What?
What would you draw me as then?
I'd draw you as Pinkie Pie wearing a suit.
I've got to show you a picture of my OC pony.
I've already told you. I've already told you. In fact, I've shown you the picture which I was working on for us.
Yeah, I know. I've seen it.
Yeah,
I know.
This is one thing I'll freely share with you, Rocket, and I'll mention it in passing to the rest of the listeners. I did a very crude Photoshop, which I'm particularly pleased with, of Statler and Waldorf sitting in their chairs, and
there you go. That's it.
Yeah, I digitally replaced. I digitally replaced one of them with Pinkie Pie's head and hooves, and the other one with Wheatley and Wheatley's face, and the gunslinger for a hand. And yeah, that was what I basically put.
If you haven't guessed by now, Rocket, Pinkie Pie is best pony in my books.
I would never have guessed that by your Skype icon.
No, not at all.
It's delightfully hilarious to have the guy in this conversation, or the guy who isn't me. The guy in this conversation has the bright pink frilly pony for his display picture, and young lady has Bender with a mouthful of cigarettes and a cigar.
No.
Have you read my quote on it? It's like, what kind of party is this? There's no booze and only one hooker.
and I can totally get the TF2 reference to your Skype avatar there, yeah.
Oh, trust me, I've had moments like that myself. I had not too long ago when I was walking out of a party. I should make it perfectly clear. It was perfectly amicable. Like, we were leaving on good terms. But me and a couple of my friends often have pretend arguments before I leave. And I walked out of the door and I slammed it behind me and I shouted at them, "Fine, I'll go have my own party with blackjack and hookers. In fact, forget the party."
I've got the next email because I've got a special thing for you after that. So I've got the next one. All right. Hello, Mad Chatters. Because I was severely behind the podcast up until now in brackets, I was unaware as to what the next podcast topic would be. Here is a rendition email. Question 2. All right, we've already covered those.
Already the questions to Rocket choose from that one.
All right, questions to Wheatley and Loopy. Is it possible to have in the documents the subjects you will be talking about next podcast? I am having a hard time keeping up with the podcast and will like to send emails relevant to the... That's actually quite a good idea.
Yeah, if we can figure out what it is we're going to be talking about in the next...
Yeah, well,
have to work these out 2 weeks in advance.
I'll tell you what. We won't do it for this week, so you won't know what next week's topics are. But starting from next week, we'll start doing that a bit, hey?
We'll figure these out in advance, of course.
We'll try.
Of course,
No
anything
guarantee.
which pops up during the week, we can't foresee that happening, like some of the new stuff.
Some things might change, but you never know. But we'll try our best in future to give you advanced notice on topics. That's actually good. And these questions can be answered by anybody, everybody, and I should actually put the every pony as well.
Very good.
All right. During the summer, or in brackets, or winter in your case, because it is freezing cold over here, will you be continuing the podcast? Just like, just the long story, we have no plans on stopping the podcast. I'll answer that for everyone.
Yeah, honestly, I think the idea of the podcast discontinuing during winter is an incredibly silly idea, because let's face it, I'm going to be inside, wrapped in my blanket next to a heater most of the time anyway. It's not like I'm going to be running around outside with a microphone going, it's podcast time!
Oh, yeah. This week we're coming to you live from downtown Sydney. It's -1 here. I'm out of here.
This week,
anyway,
to you live from Redhead Beach. But oh God, why did I come to the beach? Oh God, why am I in board shorts?
I don't think our guest can answer this one because it's community related. He's like, what do you think of the community competitions?
What community competitions?
Exactly. Quads, just to let you know, Quads is actually doing an awesome job. He's got a few that's coming up soon. I think he's referring to some of the individual players that don't run official Ozfur competitions that are giving away stuff on the servers.
Is he talking about, like, Silverthorn's item giveaway?
He might be. I'm not sure. He might be.
Well, I'll keep my comments to myself on that one, in all honesty. No, I won't even say the age-old adagem. There's usually a comment that I make in these situations, but I'm not even going to make that, because that would reveal my opinion. And
he says, will you consider donating to these competitions?
I already have my 2 cents is spent.
Yep. Besides the mini competitions in the podcast, will you plan to organise more competitions in the community?
Maybe.
I think he's referring to...
Maybe
not. Yeah, we've still got to get the portal maps done for our portal map one, which will be probably ready next month.
Yeah, we've got enough contests running at the moment, and for example, still nobody has successfully guessed what my favourite My Little Pony episode is.
Ooh, I know.
You know, because I've already told you.
Hey, I got it in my second guess. I got it second guess, remember?
Yeah, but you didn't get it the first guess, and that was the most
shut up.
You guys are such bronies. So cute.
I should point out, I'm not actually a brony. I'm a fan of the show. I think it's very well written, and I think the people who dismiss it because it's ponies are complete morons. But I don't have a pony avatar. I don't have pony pictures of myself. I don't read Equestria daily. I'm not part of the community in any way beyond being a fan of the show. And I think that the concept of calling somebody a brony just because they like My Little Pony is as stupid as applying the term gamer to somebody just because they like the games. You don't call a person who watches the television a TV-er. You don't call a person who reads books a booker, although that would be kind of funny.
I just got one very important thing to say to you, Wheatley.
Yeah.
You're not a brony, keyword, yet.
Yeah, I've been accused by my friend Quapple, my beloved friend Quapple. I've been accused by him of being a closet brony.
Yeah. Well, by the time I'm finished with you, you will be.
We'll see. But yeah,
anyway,
having said that, nothing against the actual, show. It's brilliant. Honestly, I actually find the bronies, in some cases, to be far more irritating than... Anyway. I won't go into that. And it's not all of them.
I just think it's what comes with being hardcore fans. Like when you're hardcore fans of any IP, you're gonna have your people that are just super hardcore fans, then you're gonna have that offshoot that you're just like, wow, God, stop.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, next one. Can you give any tips on how to play Minecraft Tekkit mod properly? Once I get in, that is. We'll come to that question in a second. You'll see why. We'll come back to that one.
Will we?
And you'll see. Have you made any more Portal 2 maps? Please publish them. I have made a few more, but I'm planning to release mine as a package. I've got actually testing them at the moment, so yeah. So the reason why we haven't released any more yet is because we're planning a package deal, so we can release about 10 or so of them at once.
Yeah, and without giving too much away, one of my maps is basically a colossal troll map. I won't tell you which one it is, but one of them...
Is that the one you made me do?
Yes, it's the one I made you do. Yes, I will not say which one of the maps it is. I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. But I will give you this hint. You can solve the map in the first 6 seconds if you know what you're doing. If not, then you're going to spend a long time trying to figure it out.
I will say one thing. You know how hard my first 2 maps have been?
Yeah.
The next 3 maps I'm currently got in planning, virtually can't even finish them.
I think that's a terrible idea. The whole point of Portal is that you present puzzles which people need to figure out, and that they go, you know what, that's pretty good. I'm pretty chuffed with that.
Virtually, well, let me rephrase that. He did figure them out. It just took him a little bit. It took him half an hour on each map, roughly.
But that's the thing. If the thing that made Portal and all the maps in Portal 2 and everything brilliant was that all you had to do was figure out the puzzles, and then after that, once you'd figured it out, executing it wasn't that difficult.
Exactly.
A map that is difficult through execution, not through figuring it out, is the biggest issue.
Okay, I'll be honest. Apart from one of my maps, which is hard to execute, the rest of them is just figuring it out.
We'll see.
You will see, yes. Come on, my first map that you played, the Scootaloo Scooter Course, wasn't that. You played that one, haven't you?
If that was the one where I guarantee everyone else but me's first thing to do was to jump up and get shot to death by the turrets.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I saw that coming. I looked up. I saw the launch pad. I looked up and saw the lasers, and I'm just like, yeah. What do you think I am?
Well, that one's a big figure out one. Once you figure out how to do it, the execution's piss easy.
I disagree entirely because that bouncing platform is a pain in the ass. But whatever.
Anyway,
moving on.
In what field of expertise in the real world are you studying, certified in? Trolling is not a valid answer.
Yeah, Loopy.
Hey! Well, technically I am a professional writer, and you know that to be true, because you are currently working on one of my projects.
Yes, indeed. But, I'm sure that we're all now very much acquainted with what the young lady here is qualified in. She's certainly done quite well, and she's doing very well in her field. Yeah, props to her.
I actually have a master's degree in sequential art, and I had thought about just some fun trivia. I had thought about getting my PhD in cartooning because I found a school that offers it just for the standpoint of I'd be a doctor in cartooning.
Yes, I'm Dr. Loopy. I do cartoons.
Yeah.
Well, don't worry, I can cure whatever ails you using Toon Logic.
A big 50-pound mallet.
Yep.
If only Toon Logic applied in the real world.
You know what? If I had a chance to do a superpower, Toon Logic would be it.
I wonder if there's actually a superhero whose power is Toon Logic.
Keep the show, read the rest of the email, I got an incoming phone call.
Yeah, go for it. I can keep going on with that. Actually, no, and now that I come to think of it, I actually think that Deadpool's superpower is probably Toon Logic in its own weird way.
I was going to say Deadpool breaks the fourth wall all the time, so...
Yeah, he disassembles the fourth wall one brick at a time. In fact, one of my favourite quotations from his was when he bumped into an old friend or an old nemesis or something, and there's like, Deadpool, it's been a long time. And he says, yes, Silver Bullet, I last saw you back in issue 17.
Yeah.
Good times. Anyway. So, moving along, let's see, who is this from? That's from Flaming Fox, so I don't need to do a crazy voice. It says, warning, the following rant contains geekiness. Viewer discretion is advised. You may omit this from the document and or podcast if you wish. This is directed, oh god, I can just tell this is going to be painful. This is directed at Wheatley. To defend Death 101010's email statement in podcast 11, 101010 is binary for 42. Proof, 31 asterisk 1, I assume that means multiplied by...
Yeah, don't worry about the maths, we get the idea, but yeah.
32 plus 8 plus 2 equals 42, yeah. With regards to binary can only be divisible by 8, you're thinking about the layout of the 8-bit binary system where the style byte has 8 bits. Example, the number you said in the podcast that was supposed to be 42 is laid out like so. On a side note, the number is actually blah, 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 blah. If you have any counter-arguments or points you would like to make, contact me via forums. I will take them into consideration. All right, here's my counter. That's a different form of binary to what he was talking about. Simple point. Basic binary 8-bit, which is what he was talking about, can only be divisible by 8. So while your initial statement is true, it's true for a completely different reason. It's... how can I put... Well, what's a good metaphor that I can use for this?
I just
It's
want to
like
say,
saying-
Riz, before you go on, of all the voices that you've done over the years as we've played video games, that has got to be my favorite. I have to turn off my mic every time you do it because I can't stop laughing.
Oh yeah, I was laughing. I love Wheatley's voices. I really do.
Oh, which one? The one I just did while I was doing that read?
I don't know why that cracked me up. I mean, like Pedophile Bill while we were playing Left 4 Dead was up there, but this one for some reason just sends me off the moon. So.
Oh man, that's brilliant. I'm glad to hear that. That makes me all chuffed and stuff. And here, just for a leap back in time, because the next email is quite short. I'll also nail this one. Give me a second. There's in.
This one is for you.
Yeah. Oh no, I'll do the Dear Dr. Wheatley one in a moment, but then I'll let you do the what's the next one? Whoa, the next one takes 8 billion. Actually, no, I'll have to let you do this one because the next one is for me, and the last one is. Wait, is that all from Death? Is that whole thing? What rogue? That one's from Arzar.
Oh, I must have gotten 2 from Def and hadn't realised.
No, there's one from Arzar, and then there's when it has PS Science as verb, and then it has an enormous spell from Def.
That line shouldn't be there. That's like one email there. So you finish off you can finish off the email now. It's like the last bit of it from Flaming Fox.
Hey, wait a minute. Right. I see what you mean. I would like to finish off by wishing you all the best of luck in your future. Dreadfully long but extremely enjoyable podcasts. Best of luck to your future podcasts, Flaming Fox. Now, this next one is for me, but the next one is also from Death, and I'm pretty much at this point subscribed to the fact that I'm always doing Death's voice. Even though this next one is for me, I feel like you should do it so that I'm not doing all the emails.
All right. I would put a voice on for this one, but I think I'll spare you all the agony because my Jar Jar voice is pretty good, but a lot of people don't like Jar Jar.
Jar Jar voice is in and of itself painful. It doesn't matter how...
You still got a problem with Mr. Voicer?
Oh, just no. I've had enough.
Ooh, you're a racist bastard, you sir.
Oh.
Make the awful noises
Stop
stop,
it.
Jar Jar!
Yes, please just stop now. It's enough. Trust me, I thought at first that the voice that they had chosen for him in the animated series was a welcome improvement from the one in the movie until I realized that the impersonation was too good and it made it worse.
Anyway, dear Dr. Wheatley, after listening to your previous podcast, number 13, I wish to extend a formal invitation to you to join us on the Tekkit server. As vast, mostly untouched wilderness awaits as you leave the safety of the main bunker.
Before you start reading the rest of this out, you're reading it out like an email. I get the impression that this is meant to be done in a kind of narrator, open world kind of way. So, like, maybe think like Fallout New Vegas narrator style.
Considering I haven't played Fallout New Vegas, I'll try my best. And I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it.
All right.
Actually, I think I know something at once. Out there, somewhere, industrious individuals have taken up rebuilding civilization. Join us in growing enclaves, or maybe break out on your own. Tame your own piece of land. As you build up your little corner of what you'll begin to discover the knowledge of the old world, bootstrapping together your technology into cultivated contraptions to aid you in your reconquest of this world. What will you choose to master? Biology, perhaps? Twisting the plants of the world to purpose and farming them for your profit. Maybe you're a physicist, choosing to tame the dangers of nuclear fire. Or perhaps, yes, a robotics, your metal brethren raising their pickaxes high as they march relentlessly onwards. We have plenty to entertain you. Come do science with us, Rizar. P.S. Science is a verb.
I got pretty quiet at the end there, but honestly, I think out of all of those, biology, physicist, roboticist, can't I just be some loony who runs around bashing things with a pickaxe and building himself a nice little spire in the middle of nowhere?
Well, are you going to come and join us on the Tekkit server?
I probably will come and join you on the Tekkit server at some point, although honestly, the only thing I'm probably going to wind up doing is creating an enormous machine that bakes me endless cake. That will be all I do.
I'm coming to your place. I love cake.
And you know what I'll do? And I'll even have, not only will I initially have the breakfast machine playing in the background when I do it, but then after that I'm going to replace it with the music that plays in the background in Edward Scissorhands when the inventor is making his cookie machine.
Oh, in reference to the background, you know Rebel, don't you?
Who?
Rebel, one of the also regulars.
It depends. I've known a couple of Rebels over the time. And is Rebel a woman?
Yes.
Yes, I know Rebel.
Well, she's actually teaming up with me, her son as well, plus someone else called Lepo, and we're building a town. And one thing I've actually gotten to the point where I'm like, it's an in between both of us. I've actually started driving her crazy with the boots on who's saying. So what I've actually done, and this is, if you're listening, Rebel, this is a big surprise if you haven't found it yet. In our main room where we've got the mass fabricator and all that, I've got one of the computer craft screens that says. This basically says, "Hello, Rebel. Boots on who's, baby? Boots on who's." Sorry, Rocket. Do you know where that comes from at all?
No, but I'm sure I'm going to hear about it.
Yeah, well, if you go to, I'll get you a Google link in a second. But it's from a remake. You know the California Girls song?
Mm-hmm. The
California Girls, the actual people that made the song, they rewrote the song in a brony version.
Oh God!
and I kid you not, the chorus is basically Equestria girls with so magical boots on whose bikinis on top.
Strange and unusual, but yes, I probably will come and play Tekkit sometime soon. I just don't know.
Yay! Now Razak can stop bugging me because every week he bugs me.
Good times. And now moving on, I am actually terrified to read out this next email, just because. As much as I like Death, and you know, it's always fun doing his deathly voice. There's some fairly hideous grammar and lack of capital letters going on here.
Yeah, so how about we make it a challenge to Death? If he wants you to read his emails, he has to have good grammar and good spelling.
Yeah, probably works out pretty well. All right,
so
let's see here.
Death, if you don't do it, I'll read out your email.
All right, I'm gonna see what Death voice comes out this week, because I've listened back and I seem to do a different voice for Death every week. So let's see what comes out this week.
Drum roll, please.
Let's see. I'm scared, terrified. Gah, what have you done to me? For those of you who don't know, I have a very mild case of noceophobia, and on a related note, I'm not completely sure, but I do believe that noceophobia is actually fear of knowledge. But you know,
I'll look it up
anyway. And running through that phobia list rekindled my phobophobia. And yes, 3 guesses what phobophobia is. But enough of that. My loyal friends, Wheatley.
Fear of knowledge. Yep, fear of knowledge.
Oh yeah, I remembered. Anyway, at least it's not ziminophobia, fear of the great mold. Anyway, yeah. My loyal friends, Wheatley and the magnificent rocket shoes. Oh, and I suppose I should include that pony here too. Hi, pony. I just lost the game. Oh, God damn it. I just lost the game and just had to let you know. Last week you mentioned the possibility of a drinking game. Hey, we did too. Yeah,
yep.
He remembers. Well, I had an idea of some topics that could be incorporated. Take a drink every time Loopy has a go at Death. Well, we should have drunk at least twice by now.
Yep.
Has the appearance that he has no idea what's going on. Which basically comes every time I mention a comic or a movie that you have.
Oh, shut up! Next week I'm going to start on cartoons, and if you don't know anything, I'm going to start paying out you.
Yeah, but see, the difference is that I'll pretend I know what they are and then quickly Google them.
At least I'm honest about it. I love being honest. I'm an honest person.
You lied to me the first time you told me that you'd watch The Great Race.
Shut up! Shut up!
Anyway, originally I was going to say, says something that does not make sense, but then I realized we'd have to wait because we'd all get alcohol poisoning. Now, take a drink every time Wheatley is widely disinterested in a massively popular game or show. Yeah, credit where credit's due. It's not because they're bad, it's just because I've never really been interested in some of them. You know, like when like when the announcements came out for Halo 4 or things like that, or Diablo 3, I just wasn't excited. I didn't care, and I still don't care. I have nothing against them. I don't dislike them. I just don't care. To each their own. I liked Diablo 2. Leave me alone. Anyway. Take a drink every time Wheatley does something awesome, but he's also got that scratched out because he says we'd also get alcohol poisoning. Anyhow, goes off to research something only to come back later with a witty remark.
Aha! He called you on it!
But then again, that's not exactly something that I try and pretend that I don't do. Take a drink every time the guest goes silent for more than 5 minutes.
You'd be wasted by now.
I think he watches our show too much.
You can tell that we have some good loyal viewers when they pick out this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. So, once again, I'll ask some questions, give some answer, and wave around lettuce on a stick for the watermelon. Exclamation marks, 1, 1, 1, 1, more exclamation marks, 1, exclamation marks. Righto. Wheatley, could your favorite episode by chance be Feeling Pinky Keen, the Pinky Cinches, Twisters, and Doozies? I'm afraid it is not. Though, interesting guess, and by far one of the more...
educated ones.
Yeah, exactly. Mentally provoking episodes. The idea of science versus religion was most curiously discussed in that episode, and I do give full credit for everything it was doing. But
I just would like to point out one important fact. I understand Pinky Sense.
Yes, I know you understand Pinky Sense, and I too understand Pinky Sense, but at the same time, I would not object to having her dissected to figure it out. Pinky Sense, all those other things. And did you find the hidden message in my name last week? There might be another one. Did you? Because I didn't even know there was a hidden message in his name.
Mm-mm. Wasn't looking. I'm enjoying the comedy of this email too much to look.
Could you please take these questions to the Umbrella Man if he were to contact you and potentially get an answer, hopefully by next week's podcast? How do you know what has to happen? Who writes the script? Is there only one of you? Are you omnipotent? Are your powers similar to Bender when he hacks himself inside out in one future Armor episode overclockwise? I shall take these questions to him and bring you back answers next week. Right, oh, look at that. Oh, wait, no, we've already asked you these questions. I forgot, I've already been through here. And I won't ask you the question about the trains. Just Pony Man, is there anything you can do is usually something that has been done by you? Question mark, apparently. Yes, that one. That's a final letter, you there, boy. Anyway. What am I? I'm greater than God, and more evil than the devil. The poor have me, and the rich need me. If you eat me, you will die. What is the answer to this riddle?
Ooh. Off the top of my head, I wouldn't know. And it apparently says you have the answer?
I do. I figured this out as soon as he told me.
I got last week's one before you even finished the question.
Indeed. How about you, Rocket? Do you know the answer to this riddle?
I'm greater than God and more evil than the devil. Where have me and the rich need me? I don't know off the top of my head.
If you eat me, you will die.
That's the part I'm wondering about.
And if the poor have me, the
here's a fun fact for you.
Wait a minute. Okay. Just nothing.
Yep, that's it.
Right.
Ah, very clever.
Yes, here's a fun fact for you. You know, like it says, nothing is greater than God, nothing is more evil than the devil. The poor have nothing, the rich need nothing, and if you eat nothing, you will die. But
yeah, you know where I was really lame. I got it on the poor have it. I'm like, the poor don't have anything, and then I was like, oh, that was really lame.
But there's one very sad point to this: the fact that you beat me on this riddle. Death's never going to let me live this down now.
Ah, brilliant. But in all honesty, here's a fun fact for you, and I find it appropriate, and you'll bear with me here, I find it appropriate that the young lady here will actually be the one who got this riddle first, because the reason why he gave me this riddle and then asked me to be the keeper of it for this week was because we had just had a massive discussion about the Riddler and kept trying to out-riddle each other.
Yeah. All right, am I crazy? Am I crazy, Red? Or did the Riddler not do that one previously?
Yeah, he did, actually. I know you say it, yeah.
Quite possibly he did, but then again, it's very much in the manner of the Riddler to cheat. And it's
I'm
also...
going to actually Google this and see if he did, because that one, it just sounds so familiar.
Oh, it's a good one. But, yeah, the Riddler cheats all the time, so I think it's quite appropriate that somebody would cheat by stealing one of his riddles and presenting it to somebody else. Like, for example, do you remember what his answer to the riddle about the... In Arkham Asylum, when they interview him, and his riddle to the lady about what first walks on 4 legs, then 2 legs, then 3 legs?
Which is the Sphinx riddle.
No, that's the human. They crawl, then they walk, or something like that. Yeah, it's human growing up.
Here's the thing. He says to the doctor, he says, what first walks on 4 legs, then 2 legs, then 3 legs? And the doctor says, a human. Everyone knows that. You know, first they crawl when they're a baby, and then they walk on 2 legs when they're an adult, and then they use a cane to hobble about when they're older. And he says, very good answer, doctor, but not so. All 3 answers are a baby. First they walk on 4 legs, then they walk on 2 if you cut off both of their arms, and then if you give them a crutch, they can stumble about that. That's horrible. How could you possibly
Before you finish this up, I have a...
No, you're interrupting the best bit! But she says, that's horrible. How could you have a joke about such a thing? And he says, very easily, doctor. It's not my baby.
I was going to say my favorite answer for that one actually comes from Mirror Mask, where they ask that, like, a Sphinx asks that riddle, and she's like, my dog, and he's like, no, the answer's a man, and she's like, no, it's my dog. She was like, he was on all 4s this morning, he was dancing on 2 this afternoon, and by evening he was walking on 3 because he hurt his paw, and I was just like, oh my gosh.
Anyway. While I've got this here, I'm going to give Def a riddle. I want you to solve this by next week. And if you Google it, I'll know about it, because this is a riddle I enjoy, and I've just thought off the top of my head, right? And I don't think... if you guys know the answer, tell me after the podcast, because I want him to guess this, right?
All right.
A man rides in the town on Friday, stays 3 nights, and leaves on Friday. How the heck did he pull this off?
Oh, I don't actually know that one.
Wait, what?
Say
it again?
A man rides in the town on Friday, stays 3 nights, and leaves on Friday. How did he do it?
Oh, no, you know what? I do know the answer to this riddle.
I'll tell you guys after.
I'll
anyway,
figure this one out later, but I will admit, he tried to get me with one riddle, and it was a pretty basic riddle, but it was one of those troll riddles where the answer is completely stupid, and I wanted to slap him in the face afterwards.
I've heard a version of this that is a really stupid answer, so I don't know if it's the same, but yeah, I'll tell you after the podcast what I think it is.
Yeah, there's the one of the ones that he asked me was, how do you divide, where is it, no, that's right, how do you serve 17 apples, no, sorry, I've done that wrong again, it's all in the wording. How do you split 17 apples amongst 16 people?
You cut the 17th one into 16 pieces.
You have any guesses, Mia?
How do you split 16 apples or 17 apples?
How do you split 17 apples among 16 people?
Wait. Does it have to be evenly? You didn't say evenly.
Come on.
Does it have to be evenly? No.
Well, not necessarily, but you know.
Oh, then there you go. I'll give each one apple and one of them 2 apples. There you go.
Yep. My answer, which I thought was the sensible one, was you give all of the other 16 people an apple and keep the 17th apple for yourself, thereby dividing them evenly. That was the one which I came up with. You know what his answer was? No, you make it into applesauce.
Oh, that one's old though.
Yeah.
I just went,
Look, we're about 2 hours and 50 minutes now, so you better wrap this up.
We can probably stop now. Anyway, yeah, we'll figure that one out later. Anyways, I think this has been a particularly enjoyable podcast.
It has been, yes. So, again, thanks to our super special guest star, the wonderful artistic Rocket.
Thank you guys for having me on. This was so much fun.
Yeah,
I know!
glad to
We
have
should do
you.
it. We should do it again sometime. How's next Tuesday?
Oh, next Tuesday will be great, huh?
Good, I'll schedule it. I think I can fit you in between my badminton match and Big Mac at Macca's. Yeah, sure.
Alrighty, it's been beautiful, and well, we hope to hear more from you in the future.
Oh, I'm definitely keeping track of your DeviantArt page now.
Yeah.
I've just already added you on as a friend and a watcher.
Excellent.
Excellent. Anyway, this is the Master of Insanity, Loopy Legend, and his wonderful co-host,
Professor Wheatley.
Yeah, I said it for... At least you're not Batman this week.
Yeah, there's a fun fact for you. Last week I was Batman.
Oh,
Yeah, I said, basically, instead of saying he's Dr. Wheatley, he's like, I'm Batman.
that was
Yeah,
a good
he's
week
a-
when you're
I-
Batman.
Oh man, it was great. It just pops up at the start. It's the Master of Insanity, Loopy Legend, and his wonderful co-host. Hi, I'm Batman.
And special thanks again to our guest star, who's been wonderful, and we'll have her back anytime she'd love to come on the show.
Thank you so much. You guys have a good night.
All right,
and
have fun, you two back there. I hope StarCraft went well for you.
Yeah. Did you win?
Did you guys win?
Huh? Oh, we won 3 out of 4?
They won 3 out of 4.
There you go.
75% win ratio. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. Anyway, good night, guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you around.